Hospital porters, pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV. Well, it's early on Sunday morning and I'm going to Manchester. I'm actually going to speak at an event called the Truth Movement. I thought I'd record a little video diary because I'm taking my camcorder along anyway. I had to record the event, and well, a lot's happening today. We're in politics, there's the French election and stuff like that. So I'm going to take a little video diary along with the recording of the speech. It's going to be a long, tough day as well. In fact, it's not going to end until tomorrow morning because I'm coming back on the overnight coach. That's not what I particularly like doing, but it's no other option really. It's I can't afford to stay there. There's no one among the organisers can put me up, unfortunately. And I don't want to miss a day's work, but I had to pay for a hotel, then miss a day's work tomorrow. I don't want that. So we'll see how well I sleep on the coach. I've done it before actually. I went overnight to St Anne's when I spoke at New Horizon. Remember that Skeptic talk I gave? Which I'm giving a version of that talk today actually, except it's going to be slightly updated and slightly truncated. It's going to be a lot shorter because I've only got an hour and a half. I've had to get it down from 2.5 hours to 1.5 hours, so it's going to be very concise, a concise edited version, abridged. Anyway, I'm sort of getting ready. I've got my Rich Planet.net T-shirt on. On this wrist I've got my Exopolitics Great Britain wristband. I've got the UFO Truth magazine one on that wrist. So I've got some nice wristbands today, which I thought would be appropriate. I've got some smart clothes, although if you're travelling in a rucksack, there's a limit on how smart you can be, actually, because you can't really fold up your smart clothes. I'm going to wear the shirt and just sort of try and get the creases out of it. Hopefully that'll work all right. The place is actually not in Manchester, it's in Cheadle, which is in Cheshire, just on the outskirts of Manchester, a suburb of Manchester, close to the Manchester airport, and I've got to get a train. Luckily, the station I've got to get off at is on the airport route, so the railway service is pretty good. Yeah, but I'm going to be pretty knackered by tomorrow morning, I'll tell you. But it sounds nice. It looks like some good people are going to be there. I mean, I've asked around a few people. The other people they've hosted look quite interesting. They've had Andrew Johnson there. So I think they're pretty good people if they're going to host Andrew. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm having a cup of tea, then I've got to head off. So see how it goes. Anyway, I've got to get a coach and head for Manchester. When did I last go to Manchester? I think it was maybe with Critical Mass, actually. It's a long time ago. Yeah, back in the CMR days. Those were the days. Anyway, see you later. Okay, I'm heading for the coach station now. Not much traffic on the road. This is what I should have come down here last Sunday to do that supernatural thing at this time. Look at that. Completely clear of road for all vehicles. Road vehicles. Quite something. And here I am, Oxford Coach Station. Got here nice and early, so plenty of time to find out what coach I'm getting. Yeah, so still got 20 minutes to go. Coach leaves at 8:05. I'm heading for Manchester, a place I have been to but don't go to very often. Yeah, so there's no National Express ones. I'm getting National Express. Here's a National Express. It might be mine. Let's have a look. Not in service, obviously not. beach now. It's a lovely day actually. The sun's come out. I've got to just go through the journey now to Manchester. I'm reading The Skull Experiment. I've talked about this, I showed you this in my book. The Skull Experiment by Grant and Jane Solomon. I showed you this in the Books on My Shelf video. And I think that's quite appropriate, considering I'm going to talk about the paranormal essentially, and relating to the people who don't believe in it and why. So I'm looking forward to a nice relaxing journey to deliver me out to the place of my lecture, ready for action. Mcluhan. I'm at Birmingham. Welcome to Birmingham, if that's the right word. Not my favourite place in the world. Lots of concrete, lots of square buildings. Nah, that's not my favourite place. It's funny actually how I'm recording, aren't I? Yeah. It's strange actually how there are so many headlines about Mcluhan again. It's been dredged up again. Maddie seen here. Maddie might be alive. The nanny has been interviewed, etc, etc, etc. I wonder why that is. Could it be because Richard D. Hall has just released another Mcluhan DVD, his latest instalment, another 2-hour documentary about Mcluhan. This is the last one in the series, he says, although he'll probably end up making some more. But I've noticed that these headlines tend to appear, that the Mcluhan story tends to be regurgitated and replayed every time Richard releases a new DVD. So, well, I can't wait to see it. I'll pick up a copy from UFO Truth next week, next weekend. Anyway, back to this weekend. Yeah, I'm at Birmingham. I'm halfway to Manchester. So I'm just stopping with the coach has stopped. I've got to change coaches now. So I'm at the Digbeth coach station. 100,000 welcomes. Yeah, this is in the Irish Quarter, as you can see there. This is the Irish Quarter of Birmingham. There's lots of Irish pubs around here. I've had a drink in a couple of them. Not today though. This is also a day when, if I wasn't speaking at this event, I'd be focused on France at the moment, the French election, the French presidential election. Now, yeah, that's going on at the moment. The French are voting to select their new president, and now the French electoral system is very complicated. It's almost as complicated as the American one. But basically there are 2 rounds. There's a first round where you have any number of candidates, and then there's a second round where the 2 leading candidates in the first group then go head to head. So this is actually the first round coming up. There'll be another one 4 weeks later. You get the second round. So it's a month-long process. The election. It's very different to, very different to British general elections or American general elections. The presidential election. Now, I take great interest in this because, as I've said before, you know, I do feel that there's been big changes in this world last year, and for that reason, the political process has become much more interesting to observe. 2016, the year of Trump, the year of Brexit. I've talked about this before. I don't believe it's the year. It's not the year the New World Order ended. But I think future historians will look back and they'll call 2016. It's the year that was the beginning of the end of the New World Order. Not the end of the New World Order, but the beginning of the end of the New World Order was 2016. As I've said before, that's the only conclusion I can come to. In all pragmatism, it's the only conclusion I can think of when you consider Brexit and Trump. I've done other videos about that. Now we're at another of those moments now. We're at another of those key moments, which is a kind of test. It's a test for the the post-Illuminati political forces that are coming into the world versus the establishment Illuminati occupation forces. Now, the French election, the presidential election, there are 4 candidates in the first round. 3 of them are called, their surnames, I can't remember, they're called Macron, Mcluhan, and Fillon. They sound pretty similar. They all end in on, or as the French say. On. French can't speak normally. They just say on. I'm going to go back actually because I don't want to go back to the main road. It's too noisy. So Macron, Mcluhan, and Fillon are all kind of like if you look at them, I mean, they're all pretty much the same. They sound the same because they are the same, basically. Their names are very similar for that reason. So don't want to get the sun in your eyes. Now they've all these 3 guys. They got, I think, between 18 and 20% in the polls. But of course, polls are pretty useless, as we know. They didn't predict Brexit. They didn't predict Trump. Polls are basically propaganda. They're just propaganda. Now the weirdest one is Macron, because he's a kind of centre-left candidate. He's basically, I think Paul Joseph Watson described him as Francois Hollande's mini-me. Francois Hollande is the existing president, and Macron is his mini-me, his clone. If you ever watched the Austin Powers movies. Now, he's a strange chap actually, because it's getting noisier around here. I'm trying to get the sun in your eyes. First of all, he's a man in his sort of late 40s, about the average age for well, sort of just below the average age for a politician. But he's married to a woman who's in her 60s, who used to be a school teacher. Maybe there's a bit of a fantasy thing. Sorry, some weirdo over there. Oh God, blimey! Oh God, I don't know what he's on about. Yeah, sorry, there's a loud bloke over the road. Anyway, as I was saying, like this guy Macron, his name is. He's a man in his late 40s. He's married to a woman in her 60s, which is a bit strange. He's a school teacher now, because as I said, well, there are fantasies. I mean, I sometimes think I'd like to be married to Miss Lewis, my English teacher. But it's a bit odd. I mean, a lot of French people think that's a bit odd. Or not to, or just draw out. And the thing about it is, what makes it weird is I can't help thinking it's a bit of a marriage of convenience, because when I listen to Macron speak, I get the distinct impression that he's gay. He just acts very gay. I mean, I can just sense it, that he's gay. Now, all right, all French men are a bit gay. All right, you know, they go, oh la la, monsieur, kind of thing. So all French men sound a bit gay, but this guy distinctly sounds gay. I get the thing he really is. But he's like the kind of he's the favourite of the kind of conformists. He's the conventional conformist status quo's darling. The other Fillon and Mcluhan are kind of like, they're kind of second choices. They're the spare. So as I said, those are 3 guys, but there are 4 candidates. The 4th one is the Donald Trump of France, and her name is Marine Le Pen. She's the daughter of Jean-Marie Le Pen. Jean-Marie Le Pen is one of the oldest and most senior and longest served statesmen in France. Jean-Marie Le Pen was the guy who almost got killed a couple of years ago because he went public and he said he thought that the Charlie Hebdo massacre was a false flag. Next thing you know, his house burns down and he almost gets roasted. Coincidence? So Marine Le Pen is his daughter. I'm going to go down here where it's quieter. Now, we've got to cross over the entrance to the coach station first. Now, She is, like I said, she is totally against the EU. If she becomes president, France is leaving the EU. Hopefully, it won't even be a sort of. She won't even go through the rigmarole and the tedium of a referendum, which can be, of course, there's a danger of rigging and things like that, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But she'll just simply say it's an act of treason, pull France out. I'm hoping that's what she'll do. She'll also assert France's status as a sovereign nation. She'll reinforce the borders. She'll take back control of the immigration, things like that. She'll take back control of the country's economy from the European Central Bank. Hopefully default on whatever crappy fiat currency they've borrowed from the European Central Bank and from the International Monetary Fund, and just tell them to stick it. I've got great hopes. I mean, for Marine Le Pen, there's great hopes for Marine Le Pen. You know, she really, like I say, she's the Donald Trump of the France, and for this reason, the establishment is totally against her. Now, politically, she's on the far right, and of course, this is when the SJWs will say to me, "But Ben, she's a fascist, racist Nazi. She wants to kill all gay people and lock Jews in camps. You must be a fascist, racist Nazi if you go along with her, if you support her." All right, well, I've got the perfect answer to that. Firstly, support is the wrong word. Okay, it's not support. It's like I say with Trump. I think an anti-establishment character is something we can all support, in a sense that we're not behind her or anything like that. We just want her to win. So that's not the same thing as supporting. But also, I can say to these, I've got the perfect answer to these SJWs now, haven't I? I can say, but she might become France's first woman president. You're against her. You misogynists. You sexists. You rapists. You're rapists. You're female cisgenderophobics. I'm really triggered now. So that's, if any SJW comes to me and has a go at me for supporting Marine Le Pen, that's what I'll tell them. The truth of the matter is, actually, she's actually not. As far as far-right candidates go, she's not actually. She's much more moral. She's much more kind of moderate than her father was. I mean, she's much more like, she's more like Nigel Farage, if anything. In fact, they're both very close. Farage and Le Pen are quite close. They're kind of like allies, and they've done several interviews and other projects together. So really, I mean, I don't think. Obviously, to say someone's fascist, racist, and things like that, that's just flannel. It's just ridiculous, and it doesn't ring true anymore. And I think people are waking up to that now, which is really, really good. I'm going to go back along here because, again, that's the main Digbeth Road. It's very, very noisy, so I'm going to go back along here. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the way things are going. I mean, there was an incident in Paris a couple of days ago where a policeman got shot dead. Another one is injured. They shot the culprit. Now, I don't think that was a false flag. And the reason I don't think that was a false flag is because it actually will have boosted Marine Le Pen's polls, because she's seen as the anti-multicultural mass immigration candidate. So I don't think that was a false flag. There hasn't been a false flag attack in France since the major Paris attack back in November 2015, because they know they can't have one too close to the election, because otherwise it will basically give it to Marine Le Pen. So I think we can safely say that any terrorist attack that's blamed on Muslims, or happened in France blamed on Muslims within the last year, has probably been a real one. You know, it's really done by real Muslims and not a government-controlled operation. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm based on what I've said, I'm pretty confident. Well, let's take it one step at a time. I think Marine Le Pen's going to get through into the second round. She's going to get through. Her and Mcluhan, this gay bloke who's married to his teacher, they're going to get through into the second round. People can see through this. I think they realise that Mcluhan his wife is just a marriage of convenience. As one guy put it, it's the silver sequin. It's the silver tights on the gay lifestyle. So I don't think so people can see through that. So it'll be Le Pen, Macron in the second round probably. But as with Brexit, as with Trump, the establishment are going to try and rig it. They can try and rig it in favour of Macron or one of the others. We saw this. I've talked about this before, about the electoral fraud being carried out during the Brexit referendum and during the US presidential election. They wanted to get Hillary in, and they wanted Brexit. They didn't want Brexit. They wanted Britain to remain. They wanted the Remain vote to win, and they did commit, I believe, electoral fraud in an attempt to do that. And they're going to do it again. And what's more, the evidence is already there that this is being done. For example, there was an incident in which this happened in America. Something similar happened in America too, as the Project Veritas discovered. But something similar has happened in France. What's happened is that expatriate French voters, these French people who live outside France, and therefore are entitled to vote, are being sent postal votes because they don't live in France. They can't go to the polling station. Well, through some kind of administrative error, they've all been sent 2 ballot papers each, so they get 2 votes. So that could be, that's up to 2 million extra votes, and the people they've been sent to are people who are likely to be against Le Pen because they are expatriate. Therefore, they're likely to be pro-EU. And we're supposed to believe this is simply a mistake? Surely no one will believe that. So they're going to try and rig it to keep Le Pen out. So, as I've said before, if this is springtime in Narnia, as I've explained, if you read Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, I won't put any spoilers in if you haven't read it. Please do go and read it if you haven't, because it's an incredible book. I know it's for children, but it's got major adult themes in as well. That it's not all plain sailing. The springtime process, the White Witch, who's the evil force that rules Narnia in this imaginary world, she makes a comeback. She fights back after she's originally beaten, and she tries to regain control of Narnia after Aslan the Lion has arrived. And to begin with, she's very successful. I mean, in fact, at one point, there's a very famous part of the book, very famous scene in literature, in which you believe that she's won and all is lost. There's a point where you actually believe that Aslan's been killed and that it's all over. But of course, it all ends happily ever after, and the same will happen in our world. It will be a happily ever after situation eventually. But the question is, how difficult is it going to be? How hard and fraught and traumatic will the process be? This transitional process that we've just entered, this transitional period. How fraught will it be? I mean, what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see this done peacefully. I'd like to see the change, the political change in the world, from Illuminati occupation to the post-Illuminati situation, peaceful, smooth, and pleasant, without anyone getting hurt. This is why Trump, Brexit, if Le Pen becomes president, that'll be a sign that we are moving into this new era in a peaceful way. If Le Pen does not win, if people don't vote for her because they're too brainwashed, or it's rigged against her, then we could be looking at a much more fraught situation, which there'll be a much steeper learning curve, and we could end up with, as the chapter in the book says, the last, what's it called, the last battle. Well, and it's a very violent and abrupt process leading up to what was then called the Golden Age. I believe our world can experience a Golden Age, but beforehand it could be very sticky for a while, and I want it to be as unsticky as possible, which is why I hope Le Pen will win. Because if Le Pen wins, it's a sign that things are going in our direction in a peaceful way, which is what I want. I think it's what anyone would want. Now the coaches are sort of like gathering, so I'm actually going to head into the There are the coaches there, you see. I'm actually going to head into the coach station now because I think in a few minutes my coach to Manchester will be leaving. So I don't want to miss it. So I'm going to head back into the Digbeth coach station and continue on my journey. So thanks for sticking with me this far. Plenty more to come. Right, I'm on my way to Manchester. Left Birmingham. I'm on the coach. No traffic jams or anything so far. Looks pretty good. And he painted matchstick men and matchstick cats and dogs. Matchstick men and matchstick cats and dogs. Well, I'm in Manchester. I made it. There's the old town hall up there through the trees. You can just see that. There's a gay pub. And honestly, there's also strange flags around here. There's another one down there. Oh, you noticed that, man? There's a gay flag, but there's lots of other weird ones. There's another one back here. I'll just show it you, actually. I don't know if anyone can identify this flag. There were some weird ones at the airport as well. Not national flags. There's the coach station up there. I've just come out. I've got to make my way to the venue, which is now... It's actually not far from the airport. I could have got off the coach in the airport, but I think the transport's easier from central Manchester. There's those flags there. Come on, focus. It's not focusing. That's it. There's those flags. There's a lot of those around here. I don't know what they mean, but anyway, I'm heading for the venue, which means I've got to get to Piccadilly station. There's a Victoria station here and a Piccadilly station. So some of the place names is the same as London for some reason. I don't know. There's a Peterloo as well. Instead of Waterloo, there's a Peterloo. There's in fact there was actually a massacre at Peterloo. There was a kind of yeah. I mean, one of the things I did. That's what I did when I came here. That's it. Yeah, there was something to do with the Peterloo massacre. What happened was there was a. This happened in 1812. In 1812, there was a massacre where a number of protesters against, I think they were Chartists or something, they were killed by the army. It was a Tiananmen Square style thing. The government sent in the troops to kill them and crush the demonstration. And 200 years later, there was the CMR did an event, a demonstration on the date, whatever date it was in 1812 when this happened. So on the bicentenary they did a demonstration, and I wasn't there for that, but I came here for another event like that. So I was here in 2012. That's it. There's a lot. It's got more atmosphere than Birmingham. It's got a nicer energy than Birmingham. Everything's cleaner, everything's more elegantly designed. Not a breeze block inside. I do like it here, but I mean, I fell out with the CMR guys. That's the problem. It's a long story there, but this just seems to happen everywhere now, doesn't it? No one can get on with anyone else. But I'm going to go. I mean, I doubt if none of them will show up at this event. I don't think, because I'm going to be there. I was just thinking if some of them do turn up, you know, what am I going to do? Well, just do my speech. Just do my speech. Right. Gotta find my way to the Piccadilly station now. As you can see, it's quite a nice station. Manchester Piccadilly. It's got this lot of the old Victorian architecture still left in it. But it's a bit difficult to find your way around. It's just a bit difficult to find your way around. The platforms aren't in order, and it's all a bit tricky. But I'm on my way anyway. I'm on my way. It's only a short train ride to my station, and I've got to walk to the venue. There's some pretty awful chemtrailing today, actually, in certain spots. This is actually St Ansroud North. I'm in, what's it called, Stead Green. That's where I am now. This is next to Keedle. Keedle is where the venue is, and I've got to get myself to Keedle. It's so I'm walking up St Ansroud. I mean, I've got the map. Got this trusty little Manchester Mini A to Z, which I got when I was in, I think I was here for the Peterloo event, I think. And so I could find my way round. You know me with maps, you put me give me a map, you'll drop me anywhere and I'll find it. I had a little bit of a shock actually. I got off the train and I went to a shop and got some sandwiches to eat. Just a couple of sandwiches. And oh, there's another plane coming. What you'll find, this is actually the, there's lots of planes coming over here. As you can see here, because this is kind of like the landing spot for Manchester Airport. There's continuous airplanes flying over our head every couple of minutes. Another one flies over. I was going to say that, yeah, they're coming into land. They're all coming into land at the airport. Yeah, I went off, got some sandwiches, went and sat on a bench to eat them. I walked all the way to about where I am now, actually. Good quarter of an hour's walk from where I got off the train, where the shop was, and where the bench was. I suddenly realised I didn't have my tripod. Because I brought my tripod with me. Suddenly realised I didn't have it. Well, spoiler, I did get it in the end. I went all the way back. I really I didn't run, I just walked quickly. Because, well, I was thinking to myself, I must have just left it on the bench, and I did. To be honest, it wouldn't be essential. I mean, I could record this without the tripod. I've done recordings at various live shows without tripods. Then again, you know, I just think it's good to have it if you can. I mean, if I'd lost it, it wouldn't be the end of the world. In fact, I'm thinking of replacing it anyway because it's pretty crap. I mean, it's stiff and it's rattling. I mean, you may have noticed, actually, when I do those big panning shots, you know, you may have noticed the rumbling and the jerking. That is actually the tripod. So I'm going to replace it with another one at some point soon, when I'll be bothered. Here comes another one. That's a noisy one. That's got a big jet. There she goes. Oh wow, that's a big one. That's a big one. Don't know what airline that is. I'm not a plane spotter, but that's coming into land at the airport. So now there's several ways you can get to the venue. I think there's one way down this road here. I did it on Google Earth as well. You can't Google Earth down there, but there's like a park just up here where you can just nip across. It's at the Cheadle Royal Business Park, as I said in my upcoming events video, which is kind of like a big place. But there's this thing called De Vere House, which is kind of a hotel, big hotel thing. What was I saying over there? Charitable trust, private property. Oh. Don't know what that is. Must be where they keep the crashed UFOs. Of course. What else could it be? Look at them. Those are bad chemtrails. Those. Some bad chemtrailing now. Yeah, I can see them before I can see them now. Anyway, I've been prepping, doing my prepping. Planning and preparation prevents proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. And that's what, so I have been planning and preparing in a proper way. So I have basically been rehearsing. I've got like an earlier recording I did of this on my earphones. I've been playing it through my earphones, going through my little bullet points and things like that. So I'm well and truly prepared. Now I don't want to over rehearse, you see. Firstly, this will be the third time I've done this particular speech. It's one I know quite well now, because and this is also a shorter version of it. This is the original one was almost 2.5 hours. I'm going to have to cut this down to 1 hour and 30. So I've had to cut an entire hour off it. So it's a much shorter, more concise version of the speech I've done before. So it shouldn't be a problem. I know it pretty well now. But I've reached a point where I think if I rehearse any more, I could make it worse. Another plane coming in to land. Of course, a busy airport. So I don't want to over-rehearse it. Like I said, I just want to. I've got it right. I want to keep it right. Because if I over-rehearse, I become nervous. Now, when I was at Paraforce last year, when I went to the Paraforce event in October, it wasn't as good. I did my Knots Roswell speech. It was the first time I'd done. No, it was the second time I'd done it live. First time was at Probe, but it didn't go down very well because it wasn't that good actually. I made a few mistakes. Now, there's two reasons for this. One of them is because I was very worried about my relationship with Sue. I stayed. Indeed, on the Monday after the event, that's when we split up. I've not spoken to her since. But another reason was I think I just overdid it, over-rehearsed it, and to the point where it became a bit excessively staid, a little bit too. I mean, I don't just read off scripts, you know. I do like learn things off by heart. I have bullet points and things like that. But I think I just overdid the rehearsing, over-prepared. I think this one I got just right. I think if all goes well, this will be a good performance. I'm anticipating a good performance. I think I'm keyed up now for a good performance. Right, there's a little parkway here. I can get through to the venue through this parkway. Now, it's a bit cryptic because I don't know much about this particular group, although I do know that Andrew Johnson's spoken here, so it must be a good group. But the organiser, Phil, he actually emailed me and he said at the end, almost as an afterthought of one of these emails, he said, some skeptics might be at the venue. I thought, well, and I couldn't help wondering, is this kind of like a skeptic event? It can't be, because Andrew Johnson's been there. But I can't help thinking that maybe I'm being set up. I mean, I don't mean set up in a nasty way, because it's not setting up. I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, I mustn't be afraid or uncomfortable with dissent. There's that plane. I must welcome it. I mean, I believe I'm confident in my own abilities. I'm confident in my own position, to the point where I can answer any questions they have for me. I know because I've been through it. I've been through the skeptic point of view. I've been through the skeptic position. You know, as I said, I've learned. This speech is based on things I've done in terms of. Well, it's lovely here. I noticed a lot of dead trees in this area. There's none here, luckily. But I've noticed there's been several dead trees near the station. Don't know why that is. Look at this. Oh God, look at this chemtrails. Maybe that's why it is. Anyway, what was that? Yeah, I mean, there was a skeptic when I was at High Wycombe Paranormal, the last time I did this speech. In fact, if you want to watch a video of the last time I did this, it's on Neil Peel's channel. That's Neil Geddes Ward. And just put in Neil Geddes Ward, you'll find it, High Wycombe Paranormal. There was a guy there from High Wycombe Skeptics in the pub. He came along, because we invited them, and he came along especially to represent them. He was a nice chap, actually. Shook my hand at the end of it, said thank you for a really good... That plane looks kind of lower than it is. Yeah. They come very low, aren't they? So, I'm not bothered. I mean, let the skeptics come. I'll answer any questions they have. If there's anything I can't answer, I'll just say I'm sorry. I don't have an answer for that. I'll be honest. I won't and ah and feel my ego being withered away because of it. I won't be like that. I'm not like that. I'm not that kind of person. And now I've lost. What have I lost now? No, I haven't lost my phone. I thought I lost my bloody phone. I'm expecting a phone call from Phil. I'm actually a bit early, so... I mean, if you're travelling this far, you have to get there a bit early, just in case there's, like, problems with the traffic or something. Now, I come through here, and I should be close to the venue. Oh, I heard this thing from... I think it was Miles who told me, actually, about... Talking about planes coming into land. There was this... I think it was Miles who told me, because he lives in West London, where on the glide path to Heathrow. And he knows this... He knows this friend of his. Was it Miles? Maybe somebody else. And it was sunny. And this person found a dead body in their back garden. No idea how it got there. This dead body of a man just lying on the middle of a lawn. No sign of any breaking and entering. No sign that anyone had climbed over the fence. He was just lying in the middle of the lawn. And it's kind of like a riddle, although you could probably guess it based on what I've been talking about, planes coming into land. But as I said, this is under the glide path to Heathrow. This was a chap who had a sort of Middle Eastern appearance. And the strange thing was the body was very cold, as if he'd been left in the freezer. Like his fingers had ice on it and everything. There's another one. There's loads of them. Flyby. I'll put the camera in the sun. And anyway, you probably worked out what it was. I mean, it's basically what happened was this chap had tried to stow away aboard the aircraft in whatever destination it had come, whatever place it had come from, its airport of origin, by hiding in the wheel arch, which is a really, really stupid thing to do. It's just it's a really pointless thing to do because it's you could never survive because it's not pressurised, it's not heated. So he would, as the plane ascended, he would have feel the altitude. The altitude would have rendered him breathless, and eventually he would suffocate. And the cold, even if that hadn't happened, the cold would have got to him because it gets very cold when you get high up. Anyway, I'm nearly there now. I'm going to switch off camera because this is probably a private area, so I'm going to switch off the camera now and find my way to the venue. So see you then. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for all of you for coming this evening. Thanks, Phil, for inviting me to this event. I really appreciate it. And thanks all you home on Herpanwo TV. Thank you for watching. Yes, this is my website here. Herpanwo Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. And if you go there, it's a bit of a multimedia experience. You have there's my YouTube channel, my radio show, there's a forum, there's some fiction I've written as well, which you can get on there as well. So there's quite a lot on there. It's almost 10 years old. In August, it's 10 years since I started it. So I've come quite a long way, I think, in that time. And this here is me, the portering Buddha. Yes, I was a hospital porter for 23 years, and Herpanwo stands for Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, because I thought, well, there used to be a chap in America called Jack Mcluhan who had an organisation called Police Against the New World Order. And I thought, what's good for police is good for hospital porters. And I lost my job, I was sacked, and surprise, surprise, I think it was a conspiracy. But that's a long story, that's a very long story. Anyway, tonight's show, Skeptics. Who are they? Why are they wrong? And why does it matter? I'm going to attempt to answer all three of those questions tonight. But first of all, I suppose you've got to define exactly what a skeptic is, and that's not easy. I mean, some of you in this room might be skeptics. Some of you might have skeptical views or some things or others. You know, but I mean, the word skeptic it refers to simply disbelief. Thomas, the Apostle Thomas in the Bible, he was the man who didn't believe that Jesus had risen again, and until Jesus said, "Put your hand in my wound," and he did, and then he believed. So they often call skeptics. A doubting Thomas is often a nickname for a skeptic.
My name's Steve, not Thomas.
But you know, it's kind of like it's one of these terms that whose definition is very, very sort of slippery and sometimes indefined, imprecise. For convenience, I'll use the word to mean basically someone who will disagree with you if you express an opinion relating to things such as the paranormal, spiritual matters, conspiracy theories, UFOs, and related subjects. If you have those kind of beliefs and you get caught in a corner by somebody who says to you, it's not true, these things are not real, okay, that is basically the definition of a skeptic. It's the definition I'm going to use tonight. I'm going to just discuss more about what that actually entails, because the skeptics themselves often have a different view of themselves than I think is really they factually deserve to. I'll explain what I mean. So I've had a look into the world of the skeptic. I've been investigating the world of the skeptic. And this means I've done what very few people on our side of the debate have done. I have actually got involved with skeptics themselves. I've been to skeptic events, I've read skeptic literature, watched skeptic films, and attended several skeptic events, many in fact. I'm a member of Oxford Skeptics in the Pub, and there is a Skeptics in the Pub movement, yeah, believe it or not. And I've even been to a major skeptic conference, and I've got to know some skeptics. There's some that I would describe as friends. And in order to try and get inside their heads, I mean, sometimes, you know, it'd be nice to become a skeptic for a day, just to sort of like know what makes them tick, although I might end up liking it, so I've got to be careful. So that's what I've been doing. Now, I'm not the only person who has gone down this skepticological route, so to speak. There's another person is this one, Robert Mcluhan, who's written a book, and I have to mention this because I've lifted the subtitle of his book slightly and adapted it for this particular presentation. What skeptics say about the paranormal, why they are wrong, and why it matters, is the subtitle of this particular book. It's very, very interesting. Randy's Prize by Robert Mcluhan. And the title, you'll explain what the title means in a minute.
I was actually watching a video about Randy before and Uri Geller.
Oh right, that's handy. That's handy. Then you came here.
Yeah, isn't it strange?
That's handy. Yeah, that's handy. Okay, so that's an interesting book to read. I do recommend it. Oh, hang on, where's right? There's just a little bit. There's one missing here. Sorry. Oop, there's a right. It doesn't matter. It's okay. There's one slide missing. Doesn't matter. It's okay. There's just a little picture of Skeptics in the Pub event. The Skeptics in the Pub movement is basically something a little bit, it's almost like a parallel world to our own in the sense that skeptics will get together in function rooms, usually above a pub, and they'll just get together and talk and eat and drink, make merry, skeptic merry, whatever, and do skeptic things with skeptic people. It's primarily a social event, or sometimes they will invite a speaker to come and address the event. Which is cool. I've been along to some of these events. On some of them I have to go incognito. In other words, I have to just not tell. I pretend to be someone I'm not. I have sort of pretended to put on an act. But it's just in the beginning. Now, since then, I've actually started wearing a disguise. Believe it or not, I wear a wig and various other things to disguise my appearance. The problem is that they're getting to know me, and they know I've been slagging them off a bit. Well, I don't believe.
Skeptical.
Yeah. So sometimes I have to sort of go undercover, so to speak. But others, I'll just go as myself. If you want to go along to a Skeptic in the Pub event, it's perfectly okay. They're perfectly happy to host you. They're perfectly happy to host individuals who don't necessarily go along with skeptic views. So you'll be made welcome. They're quite happy to have you there, as long as you're well behaved. That's absolutely fine. Now, there are major conferences. I've been to one called TAM London. TAM stands for the Amazing Meeting, and they hold an annual conference in the United States every year, but they've held 2 in London. There's also been a couple in Australia as well, so it's becoming international. The Amazing Meeting is organised by James Randi and the James Randi Educational Foundation, although that's now sort of changing, and I don't have time to talk about that this evening, unfortunately, but there is a longer version of this particular presentation on YouTube, in which I do go into that in more detail. But it's a big conference. It was at the Hilton Metropole in London, and I went through. It was really quite amazing. I enjoyed it very, very much. It was cool. But there's Michael Barkan, who's a researcher and author. He wrote about something called the Celtic Milieu, which means if you believe in UFOs, for example, it's much more likely you'll also believe in ghosts, and it's also much more likely you'll believe that 9/11 was an inside job, and it's much more likely you'll believe in a Loch Ness monster and other things associated with that. So what he meant to say was that these beliefs tend to go together, and although there are people who believe in some of those things and not others, generally those things tend to go together. He called that the Celtic Milieu, and he was correct. I mean, he did it in a very derogatory manner, Barkan. He's a bit of a knob, basically, but I do get his point. Now, I believe there's a skeptic milieu as well. You'll find with skeptics, if you go to an event and the guy says to you, "Oh, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God," chances are he also will not believe in UFOs. They will not believe in, and then they will not believe in ghosts and not believe in other things like that. So these beliefs tend to go together. So what is a skeptic? Now, this is how skeptics define themselves. This is their own. I lifted this from the Oxford Skeptics in the Pub page, just the About page. A skeptic is one who rigorously and openly applies the methods of science and reason to all empirical claims. A skeptic provisionally proportions acceptance of any claim to valid logic and a fair and thorough assessment of the available evidence, and studies the pitfalls of human reason and the mechanisms of deception so as to avoid being deceived by others or themselves. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this evening I'm going to demonstrate to you that I don't think that is a description. That is a slogan. That's how they want to be. This is their it's right, yeah, battery's running low, that's all. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, one moment. Okay, just
My perception of the skeptic is someone who doesn't swallow something whole.
Well, you see, in many ways, if you define it as someone who just doesn't believe in something without evidence, that's me. You know, and that's most people in this room. I mean, but you see, this is the point I'm going to try and explain this evening, because I think this is the difference, I think. The skeptic believe this is what they are, and this is what they are not. This is what I aspire to. This is what I aspire to as well. Yes, I believe skepticism is an ideology. I believe a much more convenient demonstration would be described as, just as I said at the beginning, someone who doesn't believe in UFOs, ghosts and conspiracy theories and other associated things within the Celtic milieu. A skeptic simply does not believe things within what Barkan calls the Celtic milieu. And that's simply that. That doesn't mean they're more rational, more logical. That's what they like to believe. Doesn't mean it's true. Now I'm going to begin with the most important, I think, maybe what driving force behind the skeptic. I think what motivates them, what gives them energy, what pushes them to do what they do. Now, this is all to do with the various ideas about what happens to us when we die. Here we see someone ascending into heaven. I got this from I think it's a Muslim website actually, and it's an interesting little image here of someone just going up the stairs towards heaven. This is someone who's died. Now, in my view, I mean, I take a great deal of interest in the paranormal and in spiritual studies and things like that, and I think there's good reason to suppose this is quite accurate. The truth of the matter is no one knows for certain. I think you find out when your turn comes, basically. You just got to wait and see. That's the only way you can be absolutely certain. Different cultures have different ideas to do with heaven, hell, nirvana, etc., etc. But now the skeptics, atheo-skeptics, are materialistic monists, which means they believe there is nothing in the universe apart from matter, and that anything that appears to be immaterial, such as human consciousness, is a product of matter. So your consciousness is actually created by your brain. The workings of your brain is what generates consciousness in their view. And so this means that when your brain stops working, for instance, when you die, or indeed when you're under some kind of anaesthetic or in a coma, you do not exist. And at the end of your life, when your brain ceases to function permanently, you disappear permanently. So when you're dead, that's it. I'm going to actually I'm going to play you a clip in a minute, but I want to say that the question, if you believe that, then the question has to come to you, the question has to be then posed, why do so many other people think otherwise? Why do so many other people think that's not the end of you? And the view of the skeptic is, it comes down to our self-awareness, the fact that we're able to sense the future, and the price we pay for our self-awareness and our ability to sense the future. We may be the only species that can do that, although there's some evidence to suggest that elephants and perhaps several other species can also sense the future. But the price we pay for that is the realization of our senescence, that we do die. And that, so therefore all our views on the afterlife, which involve heaven or the spirit world or whatever, are a kind of comfort blanket. They're an illusion that we have created and put into our mass psychology as a way of escaping that terrible delusion. It's to give us hope of something else, a false hope in the skeptic's view, but a hope. And I'll just play you a very interesting audio clip now. This is by Professor Chris French, who is actually a friend of mine. I mean, he's a Facebook friend at least, if that counts. But I did speak at one of his conferences. He invited me to speak at one of his conferences. And I did invite him here this evening, but he hasn't turned up. But he lives in London, so it's not surprising. But now, you should be able to hear it. I hope you could all hear this. It's coming from the actual laptop, okay? So I'll just keep quiet and let it play.
And perhaps the strongest is the fact that we are arguably the most self-aware species on the planet, and we are certainly aware of our own mortality. And that's something that most of us feel rather uncomfortable about. The idea that when the physical body dies, that's it, that's the end of consciousnness. The idea that when our loved ones die, that's it, we'll never have any contact with them again. Most of us don't like thinking about those things. And so there's a strong pressure towards accepting any kind of evidence for life after death.
Did you all hear that? You'll hear that. Great, that's brilliant. Sorry, you opened a player for me, Phil, and I didn't use it. Apologies. Yeah, so it's a kind of wishful thinking, basically. That's what French is saying. But I personally think that the wishful thinking argument, or this idea that disbelief in life after death is wishful thinking, I think it cuts both ways. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think, in a sense, disbelieving in life after death is wishful thinking. I'll explain what I mean. If you really believe that when you die, that's it, that's the end of your existence, and you're surrounded by a lot of other people who don't, and think that there is something after you die, and you know that they're only thinking that because... Sorry, I'll put the slide back on. Where was that? It's this one here. There we go. And the only reason they think that is because they're, in a sense, that it's a mental safety net for them. It makes you a pretty superior person, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? You don't need that kind of mental crutch. They do. You don't. You can get out of your bed and get on with your life without that fantasy, that feeble fantasy. You're so much stronger than them. You're so much better. Your sexual market value is going to go through the ceiling, isn't it? And so that means, I call this MBA, Materialist Bravery Award. And I've even actually created some little medals out of the cardboard, and I've sent them to a few people. Some of the people you're going to see tonight, including Professor French, he's had his. He was very pleased when I gave it to him. So I would say that you are pressured, to use French's phrase. You will feel emotionally drawn to accept any evidence that says there is no afterlife. I think you'll be more emotionally drawn towards that because you don't want to face the fact that there might be an afterlife and you won't shine anymore. I think that is an important point. Now, that there is Professor French, you just saw. He's editor of the Skeptic magazine. He's a big-time skeptic. And he's also what skeptics call a rock star. Now, what I mean by rock star is a skeptic who's really, really famous, and who is the guy the media always go to, to put the skeptic side across of any. Whenever they have someone on This Morning, or Richard and Judy, or any other program where they're talking about ghosts or UFOs or anything like that, they have to provide balance. They have to get a skeptic, and so the guy they have on speed dial is Chris French. It's always him. Before him, it was Susan Blackmore, and then Chris French is actually retiring soon. He's getting too old for this lark. So I believe he has a young apprentice waiting in the wings, and in a little while I'll tell you who I think that young apprentice is. But yeah, he's the guy who's always on, and in fact this is him on This Morning, on having a debate with Gary Heseltine, ufologist. Gary Heseltine edits a magazine I write for, actually, UFO Truth magazine, and it's an interesting discussion, actually. Now,
was he the copper? Was he?
He was a police officer, and then he became. He always had an interest in UFOs. He has something called Proof-Us, Police Reporting UFO Sightings, which goes very well with Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, I think. So Chris French is the guy you call when you're in the media and you want the skeptic point of view put across. What Susan Blackmore calls rent-a-skeptic, which is something she coined, actually. It is, indeed. Oh, well, here it is, sorry. Now this is I just had it in the wrong order. This is a picture of a skeptic in the pub meeting, and as I said, they have a healthy social life. It's always fun to go along to these. You can go along. You could just go along and pretend you're a skeptic yourself, as I sometimes do. Or others, you can just be honest. I've been to about 5 different ones around the country. There's about 50 or so around the country. There's probably several in Manchester, in this Manchester area, and city this size. Wherever you live, there'll be one near you, and they're good. They're good fun. Now we're going to talk about some of the ways which skeptics get it wrong. So I'm going to explore some of their fallacies and some of their mistakes. This is one of them. It's called raising the bar. Now, if you have a look through this, demand evidence from your opponent for everything he says, but when he delivers, demand more, and when he delivers more, demand even more. Remember, your thirst for evidence must be unquenchable. I mean, I don't know if you've, like I said, you sometimes get caught in a corner with these people. The skeptics might be, this may be some guy you meet in the pub. It may be someone you work with. Or it might be someone closer to you. It could be a friend of yours. It could be a member of your family, or even your partner. I know, husbands and wives, one's skeptic, the other's not. And by going through these different points in this section here, if you make a note of them, I mean, you could have got into a debate with these people before, and you were a little bit bamboozled. They left you a little bit reeling with their particular positions, and you may think, well, that's very logical, and I can't argue with that. These points may make you better armed next time, and perhaps you can fight back and win the argument next time. You never know. So this is the first point here: demand evidence from your opponent, raising the bar, also called shifting the goalposts. Now, let me give you an example of this. This is where, supposing some old man is walking his dog late at night in the woods near a military base, and he sees this pyramidal-shaped UFO in a forest clearing. He goes home, he calls the newspapers, and he tells his story. What will the skeptics say? I know exactly what Chris French is going to say when he comes into the TV studio and he's sitting in a chair next to this guy. He's going to say, but nobody else saw it. There were no other witnesses. I'm trying not to imitate his voice. But there were no other witnesses. The security police at the base didn't come out and have a look at it, did they? There was no official documentation from the military base. You could be sure that they were monitoring the local area. They would have sent out the security police squadrons to investigate, and they didn't. If that had happened, I'd believe you, but until then, there's just not enough evidence. But what has my imaginary Chris French just done? He's described the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident, hasn't he? If you're familiar with that. A real event that happened in 1980 in Suffolk, and that very thing, everything he just said happened. Security police from the US Air Force at the Woodbridge Bentwaters base went into the woods and investigated. There was a big witness report. There was an official press release, official document written up by the deputy base commander, which was eventually publicised in 1983. But so what do the skeptics do? Do they believe it? No, they've raised the bar, they've shifted the goalpost. Now, I mean, the things they come out with are absolutely ludicrous. It was a lighthouse. It was a truckload of burning manure in the woods nearby, and what a pile of manure that is. It was an ice cream van that had been stolen by joyriders. That's my favourite. Sock 'em with the Occam. Occam's razor. All things being equal, most likely explanation is usually the right one. Now this is a problem-solving exercise, which means if you want to solve a problem, always go for the most likely explanation first. And on one level, that is very sensible, because in a system where there's known quantities, it's extremely useful. For example, if your radio breaks down, don't change the batteries before you open it up and stick a screwdriver in, right? Because the flat batteries is the most likely reason your radio will break down. The problem is skeptics then apply this to the paranormal and to other similar issues. These are systems that are unknown, where different you can't assign a hierarchy of likelihood to different outcomes. So, for example, take the Rendlesham Forest incident. A skeptic might say, well, which is more likely? Is it a joyriding ice cream van, or is it aliens from another planet? Which is more likely? Use Occam's razor. Well, I don't know how often UFOs actually do land on this Earth, if they do at all, compared to how often ice cream vans are targeted by joyriders. So I can't answer that question. You can't use Occam's razor for that. And this gets even worse, because skeptics will actually take Occam's razor and they'll drive it absolutely into the realms of the absurd. They'll take it to such extremes. So, for example, I could say, I saw the Loch Ness Monster yesterday, walking on the banks of Loch Ness. And the skeptic will say, no, you didn't. Some clown probably had a day off from the circus, and he created a papier-mâché model, which he floated in the water to fool you. And I said, well, what clown? What clown's this? She said, I don't know what clown. But you just said there was a clown. I don't know what clown. I'm just saying, which is more likely? Is there some enormous megafauna swimming around in the depths of a Scottish lake, or did some clown have a day off from the circus and create a hoax? Which is more likely? And the thing about it is, in this case, this is what skeptics call debunking. This is where they just prove things wrong. It's what they do all the time. Or they try to prove things wrong. But in this case, what the skeptic is doing is simply, the debunking simply becomes an exercise of the imagination. And they'll just keep going, adding on and on and on things, anything which is physically possible. You can't disprove it. Of course, I can't prove there wasn't a clown having a day off from the circus. It's possible. And the skeptic, all the skeptic has to do is conjure that up in his imagination, and it wins by default, because it's not cryptozoological. And that, I think, is a fallacy. I think that's a mistake. I don't know why that should be the case. But basically, it's a kind of get-out-of-jail-free card from the skeptic, which makes it unfalsifiable. Any unfalsifiable hypothesis is a fallacy. Now, this came up in Phil's case with Sagan. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary explanations. And this was attributed to Carl Sagan, although I think it predates him. I hear someone actually said this before. But it is a bit of a skeptic, it's a skeptic cliche, really. And if you actually are feeling mischievous and a skeptic says this to you, you can say another cliche to him in a voice which makes it sound like you're saying something really original, you know. Yeah, and you know what, I'll tell you something else. It's good to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain falls out. Believe it or not, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson said that last year at a conference, and he still got a laugh. Skeptics love old jokes. They really do. They love repeating old jokes. But this actually, I mean, I do get the point you made about it, Phil, when you talk in the context you
within the context, yeah.
Yeah, but in fact, this actual statement, although it's true up to a point, is essentially, it's not something you can actually quantify. I mean, extraordinary claims require extraordinary explanations. Evidence, every claim needs evidence, and that evidence should be appropriate to that claim. But extraordinary, I mean, I've wanted to ask, well, does this claim have 20 extraordinary points and that claim have 30 extraordinary points? And there's no answer to that, because that's a non sequitur. Because extraordinary is not a statement of how much, it's not a statement of amount. So therefore it's a kind of... Hey.
Surely there has to be a consensus on what ordinary is as well.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely, that's another thing they get wrong.
I made that saying it myself.
Yeah.
It's what we're perceived to think that you think sometimes, but it's implanted.
This is what they say. By extraordinary, I think they mean things skeptics don't believe in. So things skeptics don't believe in. But again, it's a completely... It's not really a logical statement, this. It's not really a logical statement. Oops. The Santa Claus Gambits. Gambit. Maybe Skeptics can't rule out the evidence of the Loch Ness Monster, but we can't rule out the existence of Santa Claus either. Does that mean Santa Claus is therefore real? This is an adaptation of this one here, the burden of evidence. Skeptics are not the ones making the claims. The onus is on the believer to provide evidence that their claim is true, not on the skeptic for proving that it is not. And they'll bring up all kinds of things such as flying spaghetti monsters and teapots orbiting Mercury and things like this. This is actually a misrepresentation of many paranormal, conspiratorial and spiritual ufological researchers. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, firstly, the word onus is one that I know what the word onus means, but I've only ever heard it used in this context. Skeptics use it all the time. Another word skeptics love is caveat. They say it all the time. But anyway, all good researchers will not ever say this. They will never say, well, you can't prove me wrong, so therefore I'm right. Very, very few researchers say that. I think the researchers like myself and like most other people who aspire to be good researchers into paranormal, conspiratorial, ufological claims are actually making positive statements. They're saying, no, I believe this is the case because there's positive evidence to say that it's real. The skeptic's job is therefore to explain why this evidence is not real, which means that this burden of evidence thing is on the skeptic. If you're making a positive claim, the skeptic has to make another claim, counterclaim, to explain it away. Casting doubt. 9/11 truthers got it wrong about Payne Stewart's jet because they forgot to take into account that it crossed into different time zones. Let's talk about that for a while. Now, this is to do with the 9/11 issue, about who really did 9/11 and why and how they did it. Payne Stewart was a man who had a plane. This is to do with NORAD, the aerial defence response of North America. Now, they responded much quicker to Payne Stewart than people give them credit, because someone said it took an hour and 20 minutes. It didn't. It took 20 minutes, but the plane crossed into a different time zone. This is a blunder that everybody makes. Everyone makes mistakes. The actual research into 9/11 about what happened, who did it, why they did it, is extremely complex. It's extremely intricate. I mean, on your website you talk about Andrew Johnson, who was at New Horizons St Anne's. He's gone into this in great depth, and it's enormously. There's books been written about it that thick. So sooner or later someone's going to make a mistake. What the skeptic is doing here is they're focusing on the mistakes. They're focusing on the mistakes and blowing them up out of proportion to try and therefore discredit the rest of what is essentially a very, very wide-ranged and very, very intricate piece of scholarship. And that essentially is creating a straw man. It's saying, well, these 9/11 truthers, they got that wrong. It means they got everything else wrong as well. They must have got everything else wrong as well in order to get that wrong. The sneer. Anybody who believes we've been visited by extraterrestrial aliens must be a lunatic, a fool, or a con man. If you believe this, then you must be a maniac, a simpleton, or a fraud. You get this, honestly. There are nasty people among the skeptic milieu. Very unpleasant people indeed. In a minute I'll tell you a little bit more about how nasty, how vicious they can get. What does this actually tell you? For instance, what information has been given here about the possibility that we've been visited by extraterrestrial aliens? What does this tell us about that possibility? Nothing. It tells us nothing at all about whether or not we've been visited by extraterrestrial aliens. If it did, it would say anyone who believes we've been visited by extraterrestrial aliens is wrong because, ellipsis. But it doesn't say that. What it just says is that if you think that, there's something wrong with you for thinking that. Therefore, I don't have to explain any of the reasons why. This is known as ad hominem, or poisoning the well. Now, a good example of this is this is really a snide thing that they do, but you get this all the time. You get this from the mainstream media. It's partly the mainstream media that are blamed for this. All right. If you, for instance, believe that 9/11 was an inside job, in whatever form that might take, and a skeptic will challenge you or not, they'll go, "You think the Jews were all phoned up and told to stay off work, don't you?" I mean, and the mainstream media, every single time they tackle the 9/11 issue, these 9/11 truthers, thinking the Jews were all phoned up to stay off work. I mean, no, they always bring this up. The reason they bring this up is because they want to smear us. They want to tar us with nasty a brush which make us look bad. I mean, no serious 9/11 researcher I know of takes that seriously. I mean, can you just imagine it? You know, hello, Ishmael. Listen, who is this? No, shut up and just listen. Don't go into work tomorrow, okay? Something's going down. The truth of the matter is, over 200 Jews died on 9/11, including 6 Israelis. No serious researcher into 9/11 denies that. But every single time a skeptic talks about it, every single time it's brought up in the mainstream media, they sneer us by saying that that's what we think. They tell us that's what we think rather than asking us. It's just a coincidence, you know. Right, so well, this actually came up in the discussion, I think, with about possibility. You mentioned, Phil, statistics, possibilities. Yeah. This is an important point. Now, now a skeptic, if we're addressing you or me on this, will say, well, that could be a coincidence. But what could be a coincidence? That's the question. What couldn't be? There is nothing physically possible in this world that is so unlikely that you can say that cannot happen. I got into a debate with Dr. Paul Rogers at a conference. He's a skeptic researcher. And I brought this point up. I said, well, he was starting to try and say that these things were coincidences, therefore he didn't believe in them. And I said, really? Okay, let me give you a hypothetical scenario. I win the national lottery. Okay, 13 million to 1, the odds of it, but I get the jackpot. Someone every week gets it, even though it's 13 million to 1. The following week I win it again. The following week I win it again. After 5 weeks, I've won it every single time. That is perfectly possible. It's physically possible to do that. The odds are incredibly high. I mean, it's basically 13 million to the power of 5 to 1. It's a huge odd. The odds are huge against it. But it's physically possible. If you buy a ticket 5 weeks in a row, you can win 5 weeks in a row. It can happen. And so I said to Dr. Rogers, I said, well, would you call that a coincidence? He said, yes, of course I would. Of course that's a coincidence. That couldn't possibly be. That has to be a coincidence. I mean, it's just so unlikely. I said, right, where's the cut-off point? Where's the cut-off point between one and the other? He said, what do you mean? I said, above what statistical ceiling will you accept that something cannot be a coincidence? And he was completely stumped, completely disarmed by my question. And then this is the point: they will not state they will not actually state that. They will say, "Come on, give it to me in odds." They'll say, and you can give it p-values, and they'll bring up Bayesian inference and things like that. They'll go around it in any way they can, but they will not actually just simply state or even enter into a discussion about where that ceiling will be drawn. The reason is because this is another joker that they can pull out their sleeves any time to falsely prove somebody wrong. It's a fallacy. This is another thing they get wrong. Rational explanations. I'm sure there's a rational explanation for this. Even some non-skeptics say this. Steve Mehrer often says this. He's a paranormal investigator, another good friend of mine. Firstly, there's no such thing as a rational explanation. There can only be a rational method. You cannot say, I mean, if a skeptic says, when a skeptic says rational explanation, what they mean is, they mean this is an explanation that skeptics are likely to agree with. It fits in with our beliefs. And when they put the word rational in front of it, that in a sense is a piece of propaganda. They're saying it's rational because skeptics are rational. This is what we believe. But only a method can be rational. You can come to an explanation through a rational method or through an irrational method. But the explanation is neither rational nor irrational. So that's again, it's another thing they get wrong. So make a note of those, and next time you get into one of these little tussles with a skeptic, you will hopefully come out a lot better. But where do skeptics come from? I mean, where do they begin? Well, it's hard to know. I mean, as I said, there's a school of philosophical skepticism, which is something different. That's just to do with disbelief. It's a philosophical outlook. It's got nothing necessarily to do with the things that skeptics talk about. So, according to my definition, the skeptics, their disbelief in the paranormal, etc., etc. This is probably the earliest example. This is Lucian of Samosata. Now, he was a Greek guy, like yourself, Phil. He comes from your part of the world, although he lived in what is today Turkey. He lived in the 2nd century, and he was very, very interested in people's superstitious beliefs. And he travelled around talking to people, learning about them, and trying to find rational explanations for them, to explain them away, explain them in mundane terms. As did this man, many years later in the 16th century, Michel De Montaigne, a philosopher whose catchphrase was, "What do I know?" Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." And Michel De Montaigne says, "What do I know?" But he again was kind of an investigator. He was kind of a paranormal investigator of sorts, and he studied religious, philosophical, and paranormal, supernatural events. And he didn't believe that they were really paranormal. He was an atheist. He was a materialist. He'd get the MBA if I'd been around then, or if he'd been around today. I would send him one of my little medals, and I would this man too. This is Sir Thomas Browne. This was a century later in the 17th century. Sir Thomas Browne came from Norfolk, but he was an alumnus of Brasenose College in Oxford. So he's a very, very well-educated chap. And he wrote several books about the supernatural and about how it wasn't really anything other than illusion, fraud, or fantasy. But I think you have to come to the 20th century to really find the modern skeptic movement emerging. And this man is a key figure in the emergence of the modern skeptic phenomenon. This is Harry Houdini. He was actually an escapologist, it was one of his tricks. He was a magician, but he specialised in this escapology, which, as it says, is to do with escaping. You could tie him up in chains, as you see here, with padlocks, and he would break out. He used to put him in milk churns. He used to break out and seal the churn, and he would break out. Sometimes they filled it with water, which made it very dramatic because he had to get out before he drowned, basically. He even escaped from the inside of a dead whale, and from inside bank vaults and things like that. And he boasted, "You lock me up in something, I'll break out of it." And he did. But he also became a skeptic. After his mother died, he was grief-stricken, and he became very angry with what he saw as fake psychic mediums who were, he thought, exploiting the poor and vulnerable. And so he went and investigated them, seeing it as his duty to, as you might say, debunk them, to actually expose them as the frauds that they were, as he believed. He also put up a cash prize for anyone who could prove scientifically that what they were doing was true. This is a tradition that's carried on today by James Randi. Now, Harry Houdini, it's interesting stories about him. He died on Halloween night in 1926. It was quite sudden. He'd actually got into a fight with someone, and he got punched in the stomach, and he died from complications due to his injury. But every year, what he did before he died was, he didn't know, obviously this was sudden, but he did discuss the idea of death with his wife, Bess. And he said to Bess, his wife, if I go before you do, or if you go before I do, let's go to psychics and go to seances, go to spiritualist churches. Let's see if we can contact each other. Let's put this to the ultimate test. So they left a coded message with each other, which only the two of them knew. And he says, you'll know it's me and it's not a fake, because I'll give you this coded message when I come through. And according to official stories, this never happened. Houdini never came through Bess, carried on going, for the rest of her life she carried on going to seances and spiritualist churches and seeing mediums, and Houdini never came through. And to this day, Harry's fans, they have seances every Halloween night in various places, most famously the Knickerbocker Hotel in New York. They will gather, to this day they still do it, and they hold a seance. Harry, come back to us, Harry. And Harry never comes back. But they always say, read old books. If you're interested in the paranormal, make sure you read the old books as well as the new ones, because there's some information in the old books which you don't get in the new ones. And there's a book from 1983 that someone gave me, and it actually tells a story of Houdini, but it tells a different tale. It actually says that in one case, Harry actually did come back to Bess and gave the coded message, and Bess reported this. You don't find that in the modern books, but you found it in this Reader's Digest Encyclopedia of the Paranormal from 1983. So always do look at the old books as well. There are several organisations connected to skepticism. This is one of them. This is the oldest, was founded in 1949, Committee Para. I believe this means the Belgian Committee for the Analysis and the Critical Analysis of, and I don't know, parasciences, parascience, I can't speak French very well, but I think that means paranormal phenomena. But that's still going today in Belgium. Now, this is, you can't see, it's a small picture, but it actually says CSICOP, the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. Today it's called the CSI, Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. This is a very important organisation because it was founded in 1976, and the reason it's so important is because it's launched or even furthered the careers of some of the skeptic rock stars of the modern world, specifically James Randi. Carl Sagan was a member too, as was, there's people like Richard Dawkins is a member, Chris French, I've just talked about, Paul Offit. Paul Offit is the man who wants the law to step in and force people to be vaccinated. Paul Kurtz, I don't have to, I'll talk more about Paul Kurtz in the longer version of this lecture, but he's a very sinister individual. But anyway, it's pronounced psychop. Psychop. Now, people think this is a joke because PSI is short for psychical research, parapsychology. So psychop could imply that these people are the policemen of paranormal investigation. But that's kind of a joke, but they claim it's not. They claim that it's not actually real, and it's just a coincidence. Yeah, a coincidence. They publish a bi-monthly magazine, the Skeptical Inquirer, talking about the face on Mars here, you see. Now we're going to go through a couple of case studies with you. Now these, how am I doing for time? Another 5 minutes. So I'll go through, I'll probably have to break halfway through this particular case study. This man, I think, is the pivotal figure of the modern skeptic movement. His name is James Randi. He was born Randall James Hamilton Zwing in 1928 in Canada. 1928, that's 2 years after Houdini died. I don't know what you guys think about reincarnation, but I can't help wondering if Harry decided he needed to come back and have another go, because Randy is the modern Houdini. He does, including, he presents a cash prize. Now, he began his career as a magician, like many skeptics, and he at a young age, he used to bunk off school and go and watch magicians. He joined a circus at the age of 17 and learned the trade. He soon got into the media, he did the theatre circuit, he ended up on TV. In the 60s, he became primarily a skeptic rather than a magician, and he started investigating paranormal and things like that, and parapsychology, and trying to debunk it, which he claims he has done. This is Randy here, and the man standing next to him is called Davy Pena. Now, they are a same-sex couple. That is, they got married actually a little while ago. Davy Pena is he comes up again because he's helped Randy pull off some of his hoaxes, because Randy's famous for his little tricks. He really, really is. This is Uri Geller. This is the most famous paranormal proponent, I think, in the world. He's an Israeli. In 1970, he burst onto the world scene as the man who could bend spoons with the power of his mind, and several other things. I do mean several. I mean, because Randy says this guy's nothing more than a conjurer.
Allegedly Mossad as well.
Well, allegedly, I think he says he's a Mossad and CIA agent. He worked for the Stanford Research Institute and was recruited there. So yeah, I mean, I think he was. He's talked so much about his work for the intelligence agencies. I think he's telling the truth. So maybe he has real abilities. Randy thinks he's a conjurer, and to be honest, if he is just a conjurer, well, he's not a very good one, because he only has about 3 tricks. So he's not up to much. But basically, Randy and he hate each other, and they've been pursuing each other through the courts for about 50 years. And yeah, I mean, it's thanks to Geller that Psychop changed its name to CSI. But it's still going on. This saga goes on. Geller says he's the real thing. Randy says he's not. But shall I take a break and carry on in a little while?
We'll just have 10 minutes break.
Yeah. There's a lot more to tell you about this. Okay. Cheers, Phil. Burn me and throw my ashes into Uri Geller's eyes. Now, what you see before you is $1 million US dollars cash. And I know, thanks to the Rothschild banking system, that the US dollar is not really worth much now, but that's still quite a lot of money. You can do a lot with that. Now, Randy says this. He says, like, if you have a paranormal belief or paranormal ability of any kind, come to me, prove it scientifically, and I'll give you $1 million in cash. There you have it. And it's never happened in the JREF. Now, the JREF, the James Randi Educational Foundation, is the organisation which administers the James Randi $1 million challenge. Now, this is something that Houdini, of course, started in his lifetime. Randi started with $10,000, just like Houdini did, which was a lot. It was a lot more money in Houdini's time. But this is in the 60s, and more people gradually added to it. He's got a lot of very rich sponsors and some strange connections to the military-industrial complex. The money comes from, which I don't have time to tell you about tonight, but it's in the longer version on YouTube. Now, as I said before, skeptics love old jokes. They love repeating old jokes. You can tell a joke 1,000 times, you'll still get a laugh from it. One thing that they do, whenever Randy's being interviewed on stage, the interviewer will say with a bit of a smirk on his face, "So, has anyone ever come to you for your $1 million challenge and you thought, this is the man, this is the one?" And Randy goes, "No." And everyone just bursts out laughing. But no, according to Randy, no one's ever come close to it. No one's even passed the preliminary tests. But is the $1 million challenge really the watertight one, the ultimate word, the last word on what is and is not real? Is it really? Because other people disagree. Other people say it's not as legally watertight as you might think. And Randy was actually sued a couple of years ago, and it was very, very strange because it was in all over the place. It was all over the press for a while. This guy was trying to sue him. Then it all went quiet. That means they must have settled out of court. So Randy wasn't willing to fight it. He gave this guy an offer. The guy accepted. Which is strange when you think that the $1 million challenge is supposed to be completely so black and white. Rupert Sheldrake is another guy, very interesting chap. He has also spoken about his own experience with Randy. Randy wanted to... Sheldrake's done some experiments with dogs and the telepathic ability of dogs. Randy wanted to offer him a $1 million challenge. Sheldrake sort of went into it, but then realised that Randy was basically conning him. So the $1 million challenge is not as foolproof as you might think. See, Randy is he's a duplicitous character. He's a showman. He's been trained in showmanship, and this is why. And a lot of skeptics do that. A lot of skeptics have what I call a shop window, which means that there could be cockroaches in the storerooms. The books could be blood red, but the shop window always looks lovely. And that's, I think, sums up Randy. He will always present a good face. He's trained in showmanship. He's trained in presenting himself to the public. He knows how to make himself look good and to convincingly lie. And he calls himself a professional charlatan.
The same with Gallibo, because he was a Mossad agent too. He'd be trained in all that.
Well, yes, he was indeed. Now, it's a small picture. I hope you can see this. This here is James Randi, photographed with Steve Shaw and Mike Edwards. Steve Shaw today is he's a magician called under the stage name Banachek. But this is very, very interesting because in 1979, James McDonald, the head of the James McDonald Military Industrial Complex organisation, donated £500,000 to the Washington University in Missouri to carry out psychical research. And they set up this complete laboratory, which he funded. And these people at this laboratory, this university, made an appeal for anyone who had psychic powers to come in and be tested under properly controlled scientific conditions. Randy saw his opportunity, so he approached these two guys. Now these are two young guys from high school in America, and they used to amuse their classmates with magic tricks of various kinds, card tricks, making things disappear, and spoon bending, just like Geller. They did spoon bending. But these two guys said, we're not psychic, we're just magicians. But we can do these things because we've learned the tricks that Geller uses. So these guys were really on Randy's level, and just exactly the kind of people Randy wanted. So Randy inserted these people into Mag Labs. He said, go up there, pretend you're psychic, and just ask to be tested and see how far you can get before see if they ever find out that you're just cheating and you're just using trickery. And so they did. Now, according to Randy, it was game, set, and match. Complete and utter coup on his part. In 1983, James McDonald and his laboratories, they called a huge press conference because you know what? We found real psychics. We've tested them and they passed.
Steve Shaw, Mike Edwards are real. We've subjected them to all this scientific analysis, and we're absolutely convinced they're the real thing. So come on stage, let's have this big press conference, invite the world's media, and there's been a Nobel Prize for us. So all the McLab staff were up on stage, in a very self-congratulatory mood. Then on comes Shaw and Edwards. They come up to the microphone and they said, I'm afraid we're not really psychic, we cheated. Red faces from the McLab staff, ultimate embarrassment, ultimate humiliation, game, set and match, James Randi. That's how Randi portrays it, but that's not actually what happened. There's a guy called Michael Falborn who's looked into this. And the fact of the matter is, what Randi says about Project Alpha, as he calls it, is a lie. First of all, there was no press conference. It didn't happen. There's a brief clip. You can see a clip of the actual moment, but it's a very, very short clip. The reason it's a short clip is it was not a press conference held by James MacDonald and his organisation. It was held by Discover magazine in July of 1983. They held an organised event there. Shaw and Edwards just one of the people who were actually speaking. There were people from MacLabs in the audience, but it was not an official MacLabs event. The reason is MacLabs never ever made the statement that Shaw and Edwards were the real thing. That did not happen. In fact, Shaw and Edwards were both dropped a year earlier from the entire programme. So Randy's lied. He's lying about this. Now this here is someone called who did a tour of Australia in 1986. He's called Carlos the Great. He's a channeler who summons up the ancient Fifth Dynasty spirits and things like that, and he brings them down and things like that. He sits in front of a rapt audience. He packed out the Sydney Opera House in Australia, things like that. But actually, this is actually a guy called Davy Pena. Do you recognise him? You would have seen him earlier on. He's actually James Randi's partner. He was actually a lot of fuss over because he had several identities and he was arrested at one point. But now this was a slightly more successful coup on Randi's part, because this guy did actually fool a lot of people in Australia. But he didn't pack out the Sydney Opera House. He wasn't in the main auditorium. He was in a little side room. There was a capacity of about 200, I think, and that was sold out. But it wasn't the big opera house, that huge building you see in Sydney Harbour. He didn't pack that out. And not everyone was convinced by it, but again, Randi portrays this as a 100% complete victory on his part. But credit where credit's due. This is Peter Popoff. He's a Christian evangelist who tours all over America, and he fills up entire theatres. He packed out a football stadium once, this guy. And he has this big Southern Baptist voice, and he says, Jesus, come down and heal these people. And he carries out these spiritual healings on people where he goes through this. It's really quite amazing to watch. He grabs hold of them, he says, Jesus, heal these. Angels are coming down and healing you now. And, well, Randi was a bit suspicious because he seemed to know an awful lot about the people he was supposedly healing. He knew their names, their addresses, and he would actually say their names on stage to call them down. And so Randi was a bit suspicious, and he brought in an expert in intelligence and electronic intelligence and surveillance, and with a radio scanner, and they picked up the frequency of the little radio earpiece that Popoff has in his ear. And his wife was backstage, basically reading out the details from the prayer cards that people had put in the box.
Yeah. This is amazing after listening to it 3 hours ago. We were saying it down and seeing it there.
Yeah,
it is really funny.
So this man, Popoff is a complete mountebank. We know he is because they actually found evidence against him. And Popoff was basically taking money from people because people were throwing money at him, because he was very, very rich. But he was a complete utter con man. And to be fair to Randi, it's thanks to Randi we know about this. So, skeptics are the people you go to when you want something like this done, because they know what evidence is, right? They know exactly what they're doing when it comes to finding this evidence, because they know about logic and reason and evidence. No. This is psychic Sally Morgan. You've probably seen her on TV. You may even been to one of her shows, because she regularly tours all over the country, all over the world, actually, in theatres. She's one of the best-known psychic mediums in the world. Now, she was accused of pulling a pop-off. Grow up. Yeah, that was way just smart. But what they basically thought was that she was doing exactly the same thing as Peter Popoff. This was much more recent, though. This was actually in January 2014. She was at a theatre in Ireland, and someone called a local radio station and said, basically, I've been in the theatre listening to Sally Morgan do her speech. I think she's got a radio earpiece in. I know that because I heard her voice backstage underneath the seats, reading out things. And Sally said them a moment later, just like that pop-off guy in America a few years ago. Right? So guess what happened, right? Now, if I was in that position, right? I can out-skeptic the skeptics, because if I was in that position, the first thing I would do is exactly what Randy did. I'd get hold of someone who knows how to operate a radio scanner. I would insert them covertly into Sally's next event, and I would see if they could pick up the frequency. And if she found out, right, if they found her and that she was guilty, I would say expose her, just like he did Popoff. Disgrace her. Publicly shame her. But you know what, guess what, right? These skeptics who know so much about gathering evidence didn't do that. They didn't bother to do that. What happened instead was Paul Zenon, who's a magician and skeptic, wrote an article in the Daily Mail basically saying Sally Morgan is pulling a Popoff. She's got a radio earpiece in her ear, and someone backstage is giving her information. We know this because someone said so. So this hearsay, in the skeptic logical mind, you know, remember that definition, apportioning all evidence, you know, rational logic. Oh, this hearsay has magically metamorphosed into solid fact. And this was published in the Daily Mail. Sally Morgan received death threats. I mean, this is. I want to bring this up later because there is a skeptic thug element. There is an element of the skeptic movement which is criminally violent. And she was sent pictures of dead bodies. And this is very important because pictures of dead bodies were sent to two other people, someone called Merrill Dorey and someone else called Rebecca Watson. I believe that the same internet thugs were responsible for all of these crimes. Sally sued the Daily Mail, and she won £110,000 in damages, plus costs, and very richly deserved, if I might add. And the skeptic, I mean, I went onto a skeptic forum, as I do, and I have several aliases, and sometimes I go covertly, I don't tell them who I am, and I pretend to be a skeptic. And I brought this up, and I started discussing it. And the skeptics, they have, the detachment from reality that these skeptics have is unbelievable. They can't understand what they've done. Because they were all cheering on, they were all against Sally, they were all cheering on Paul Zenon. There's Martin Robbins is the only person who understood the magnitude of this blunder. That's what they've actually done. That they expose themselves as being completely ignorant of what constitutes evidence and when to make accusations and what it means to make an accusation without evidence. I mean, you could just imagine, can't you, if you were in court trying to prosecute Sally Morgan. Say, the judge will say, well, do you have evidence she was using an earpiece? No, Your Honour, but we sort of onused it a little bit, and we Occam's razor, and we kind of like said, well, what's more likely, is she using an earpiece, or is she talking to the dead, you know? And well, you know, burden of proof is on, you know, kind of case dismissed. Remember, guys, ordinary claims require ordinary explanations. Now, skeptics are. I was talking about this in a break about just to several of you actually. Skeptics do sometimes change their minds. They convert in the sense they are skeptic for a long time, and something happens. Sometimes it might be something like this mess up with Sally Morgan. Maybe they have an experience or something, and then they cease to be skeptics. They change their minds, and they'll become proponents of some of these things. Also, it works the other way around too. Sometimes people on our side will become skeptics. I've known a couple of them. One thing that's never happened, one thing the skeptic movement has never had to put up with, never had to endure and face up to and deal with, is the conversion of one of their rock stars. But maybe that's about to happen. This is Michael Sherman. He runs the Skeptic he's an editor of Skeptic magazine, which is a similar magazine to Skeptic Inquirer, bi-monthly. A lot of the people who write for Skeptic Inquirer write for Skeptic too. They're not really rivals. And he runs the Skeptic Society. Now he had a paranormal experience. He used to be a long-distance cycle racer, and he had like a very, very intense paranormal experience while he was riding through the countryside, basically because he was suffering from exhaustion and lack of sleep because of this long-distance ride he was on. And unlike some people, he immediately came to the conclusion it was not paranormal, really. It was just his brain playing up. But it encouraged him to study psychology, and he ended up becoming a professor of psychology and a leading skeptic. He is one of the top skeptics in the world. He is almost like the American equivalent of Chris French. You call him up. If you want to do a TV program about the weird and wonderful, you get the guy to come in who doesn't believe that anything's weird and wonderful. And Sherman's often the guy you call. He's often the one you go to first. It's interesting because something happened to him in 2015. He got married. He got married to a woman called Jenny, who comes from Germany, and Jenny moved over to California in USA, where Sherman lives, and lived with him. And they got married in his home, which you can do in America. Now, before she came over, she had all her belongings shipped over, and one of those was a little portable radio, a 1978 Philips transistor radio. It didn't work. It's a very old piece of electronics. Didn't work at all. But she kept it for sentimental values because Jenny actually was a. Her father died when she was 12 years old, and she was brought up by her mother and grandfather. And so the radio belonged to her father, so she kept it for sentimental reasons. When Sherman got hold of it, he thought, well, I'll see if he can make it work. So he opens it up, sticks a screwdriver in, thus breaking Occam's razor, of course. But he couldn't get it to work. So he just put it in he decided to keep it. He put it in his desk drawer, in his study, and just left it there. Jenny just said, just keep it. I don't want to throw it away, just keep it. So they get married downstairs in the lounge. They get married in a humanist ceremony. Halfway through the ceremony, he hears music. Everyone hears music. Sherman turns around really annoyed, thinking some bugger's left their mobile phone on. No, nobody's left their mobile phone on. The music's coming from upstairs. So he goes up the stairs. The music's coming from his study. He goes into the study. It's coming from the drawer in the desk where he put that radio. He opens it up and the radio is working. It's playing music. And it's not just playing any song, it's playing a song that Jenny's dad really loved. And it happened at the very moment when they were sort of exchanging the rings, and Jenny had actually been thinking, I wish my dad was here to give me away. After that, the radio broke down again, and it hasn't worked again since. But Sherman was absolutely dumbstruck by this. He said, this is what he said. He says, I just witnessed an event so mysterious it shook my skepticism. If I'd heard it from someone else, I wouldn't have believed it. Well, he has heard it from other people, and he hasn't believed it. But now it's happened to him. He says, I have to admit, it rocked me back on my heels and shook my skepticism to its core. The emotional interpretations of such anomalous events grant them significance regardless of their causal account. If we are to take seriously the scientific credo to keep an open mind and remain agnostic when the evidence is indecisive or the riddle unsolved, we should not shut the doors of perception when they may be opened to us to marvel at the mysterious. What an incredible thing for a skeptic to say. And this got onto the various forums I'm a part of, and people were talking about it, and they go, oh my God, Sherman's turning into a woo-woo. That's their nickname for us, people like us. Oh God, what are we going to do? And there was a long discussion about this. I decided to keep an eye on this, because I thought it's when people have a change of mind about something very, very fundamental to their belief and their foundation, their view of the universe. It doesn't often happen straight away. The road to Damascus flash of lightning is extremely rare. Very often, new information will come in. You'll process it. It'll be you'll put it on the back burner. You'll forget about it for a while. It'll be processed subconsciously for a long time. Maybe years later, it'll resurface again. So I checked out his website, michaelsherman.com, to see if he was saying anything else. Sherman's website, he doesn't. How much time have I got left on there? That's all right. Oh, plenty of time. Just checking how much film I had in the camera. He doesn't do much with his website except post links to his articles in Scientific American, because he has a column there. And he was writing the usual articles, why do people believe this and that and the other. And it looks like he has sort of picked himself up, dusted himself off, and carried on walking down Skeptic Avenue without breaking his stride. But you never know. Seeds might have been planted. Let's see if they grow. Either way, I mean, if he does become a woo-woo, I think he'll need to be supported, he'll need to be protected, because the skeptic movement will not take kindly to such a high-level defection. They will make his life hell. The skeptics can be vicious. I'll explain more, but we'll see. Let's just see what happens in the future. This is Dr. Susan Blackwell, rent-a-skeptic. This is the one who, before Chris French was the guy with on speed dial, she was. She was the one who was always on TV when you wanted to make something about the paranormal. Let's put the skeptic side across for balance. Susan Blackwell, bring her in. But she started out on our side of the fence. Now, when she was a student, she was a student at Oxford, actually, at St Hilda's College. And in 1970, she was partying, as students do, in someone's house and taking drugs, as students also do. And she had a real kind of like voyage to trip out cities, so to speak, which completely transformed her life. It was so, she described it as so real and so intense that she was determined to find out expose the reality of it scientifically. So she actually left the course she was on and studied parapsychology, and she became a well-known parapsychologist and a believer. She used to do tarot and things like that. She was a Wiccan and stuff like that. She was completely on the sort of mystical side of the fence. Now, she changed her mind quite suddenly. Around late 70s, she moved over and she became rent-a-skeptic. It happened quite quickly. Her conversion was quite sudden. But she developed, obviously, a very lucrative second career as a skeptic. But the funny thing is, I don't like to play amateur psychologist, but I do wonder, I have looked into what might have caused her to become a skeptic. Now, what happened was, she had a very, very unpleasant experience in 1979. She was working in a parapsychology lab, desperately looking for evidence, and then she thought, my God, I found it. Because she was studying the work of Dr. Carl Sargent, who was a Cambridge parapsychologist, and she thought, this is it. The results he was coming out with were so incredible on the Gansfeld test, which is where they put ping pong balls over your eyes, and you try and communicate. He said, this is so promising. She immediately got in touch with, she phoned up Carl Sargent and she said, please, 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 can I supervise you? Please, let me come to your laboratory and supervise you. I beg you. I want to get me involved in this. Please, please, please. And he says, of course. So she got in her car and she burnt rubber driving up to the other place. And she did that. She supervised Sargent in his laboratory. And in the end, to her dismay, she concluded that he was cheating. He was committing scientific fraud. And when she published this, she thought, well, this is going to be really bad. Obviously, Sargent's going to get into big trouble now, but I have to be scientifically honest and publish the truth. But Sargent didn't get into trouble. She got into trouble. She was reprimanded by her professor, the head of her organisation, and Sargent, no action was taken against Sargent at all. No further investigations were made against him. If he was cheating, he got away with it. And today he's left science. He left science eventually. And today he's designing computer games. I know this is true because Blackmore's told us. She said this at TAM London in 2010, an event I went to, this big conference I told you about. And this was not recorded. You won't find this on YouTube anywhere. But I know what happened. I was in the audience. She starts weeping on stage as she's telling this story. And it's pretty obvious, even after all these years, it affects her very deeply. It's something that traumatised her very badly. And I can't help wondering if one of the reasons she became a skeptic, even if it's only subconsciously on her part, is because she had an axe to grind. And of course, that can happen to people. These sort of things can affect people and make them behave like this, and make them change that. I mean, there's nothing else she could have done anyway, apart from, certainly not hairdressing. So that is the story that she told, and I interpret what she herself told us in that way. Now, Richard Dawkins, he's come up this evening already. This chap is a biologist originally, but he's become a major cultural figure, and He's very, very important, I think, in the skeptic movement because he represents a bridge. Firstly, he's a populariser of atheism. He's part of this new atheist movement, so-called. Although, in fact, the new atheist movement is actually no more than the old atheist movement that has been kind of like popularised and rehashed and repackaged for today's era. But he's probably the most important of the new atheists. His book, The God Delusion, sold 6 million copies, translated in 22 languages. But he represents a bridge as well between atheism and skepticism. Now, atheism used not to be part of the skeptic movement. Atheism used to be just a disbelief in God, and it was associated with political movements like secularism. Secularism is actually not the same as atheism. There are secularists who believe in God. But the idea that God could be a hypothesis, could be a scientific hypothesis, and could be treated in the same way that skeptics would treat ghosts and other things, goes back to Dawkins. It can trace back to Dawkins. And Dawkins actually, I'll talk a little bit more about the skeptocracy, but Dawkins is actually, he has revealed himself just in the last couple of months as another thing that concerns me about the skeptic movement, and that is their tendency towards the imposition of power. Dawkins has actually stated publicly that he believes that the Brexit referendum of June the 23rd last year should be rolled back. It should be rolled back and reversed. Because when the people made their choice, they made the wrong choice. So therefore, it doesn't matter. So he has what I've often found with skeptics. He has a very patriarchal attitude in political terms. Yeah, he believes that basically Big Daddy government should always tell us what to do. When it's something skeptic like, he's absolutely fine with Big Daddy government stepping in and telling us poor little ignorant children what we should and shouldn't do. And so he's really exposed himself very badly in that way. And there's many, many more examples. This is the logo of the British Humanist Association. You may recognise that logo from one of the slides that Phil was showing earlier on. This is one of the organisations that Dawkins is a part of. And there's many people within the skeptic movement who are now part of this. I've been to several humanist events as well. They do kind of weddings and funerals and the equivalent of baptisms, which is baby namings. So they have these kind of ceremonies without religion. And their logo is this, and their slogan, their motto is, "For the one life we have." MBA. MBA. Yes, I have sent them a medal. Right, Professor Brian Cox. This is
Mr. D. Reed.
Yeah, this man is the young apprentice of Professor Chris French. This is the guy when Frenchie's retired for good. This is the guy you're going to see on TV. Now, this guy, he used to be a nobody. He was a particle physicist from CERN. You know, the 666 and the Shiva and the Pit and Satan and the black holes. You know, I could talk for an hour on that. But yeah, he used to work there, and he's now a major media mega star. A star is born. He appeared in an episode of Horizon, and probably people thought he had the right stuff. But he's actually a very unpleasant man. He doesn't debate with anyone. He doesn't have rational debates with people like us. He calls us names. He really is one of the most obnoxious and rude people in the skeptic movement. Now, I sometimes wonder why him. Maybe they just thought he was photogenic, he's good looking, he's articulate, or some people think so anyway. And he's ignorant. He may know everything there is to know about particle physics, but he knows virtually nothing about anything else. What's interesting in it actually is his wife. His wife is called Gia Milinovich, and she's she's a TV producer. She doesn't appear on camera, but she works behind the scenes. And maybe she's working behind the scenes in his life. Now, she's a hardline feminist, and she's a member of several fifth column organisations. We were talking about the Tavistock Institute earlier on. I mean, I don't know if she's a member of that, but she's a member of the Lifeboat Foundation, which is similar to that. Now, my conspirador is going at the moment. It's rotating right now, because I can't help wondering. It tends to be the husband or wife or the boyfriend and girlfriend who is the CIA handler. The person who's...
Like Wiener and Humidor.
Yes, I mean, and if in the Manchurian Candidate, it was the mother. I know in the famous book on the film Manchurian Candidate, it was the mother who's mind controlling the assassin. But it's more often you'll find it's the partner, it's the lover, who is actually the agent who's controlling the mind control person. So it could be Cox's mind control. I'm just saying, I don't know about this, but it could be that Cox's mind control and his wife is the actual agent who is operating him. I don't know. It's just a thought. But you'll see a lot more about this guy is destined to play a big role in media propaganda. He already is. I mean, he's always on TV. He's continuously on television. And David Attenborough, the guy, the biologist who goes into the forest and sits down with gorillas, he's getting too old for that caper, so he's named Cox as his natural successor. And Cox has done a TV show called The Wonders of Life, which is exactly the kind of programme that Attenborough would have presented if he hadn't retired. Cox, though, is not a biologist, he's a physicist. So why Cox? Why is Cox the natural successor to Attenborough? Right, the skeptocracy, rule by skepticism. We're going to talk a little bit more about Skeptics is. How much time have I got, Phil?
Got about 20 minutes, but can you leave some time for questions?
Yeah, 20. Oh, yeah, I will. Yeah, okay. Now, Simon Singh. Simon Singh is he's a skeptic who has a column in the Guardian, and he's big. It seems like you can't be a big-time skeptic unless you have a column in the Guardian. I mean, Cox has got one. Dawkins has got one. They've all got one. But anyway, he accused the British Chiropractic Association of being bogus, and they sued him. And he had to fight a long legal battle. He won in the end. I actually supported this guy because although I don't agree with him, and I mean my dad's had chiropractic, it works, and a lot of people have chiropractic, I do believe in free speech, and that includes the freedom of people who disagree with me to have freedom of speech. And so so the skeptics, of course, were very keen to defend this guy, and I supported them. The question, the skeptics talked a lot about free speech while they were defending this guy. The question, though, is when skeptics swap to the prosecution bench, do they have the same attitude? No, they don't. Fortune telling no longer on the cards for Philly. Now this is something I brought up. I found on the Skeptic forum. I talked about it. The skeptics are 100% they're 100% behind the authorities on this. Fortune telling no longer on the cards in Philly. City closes psychics, astrologers, and tarot card readers. Philadelphia, they never saw it coming. Yes, city inspectors shut down more than a dozen psychics, astrologers, and other mystics after learning about a decades-old Pennsylvania law that bans fortune-telling for profit. The inspectors have closed 16 shops, and they've not made any arrests, but they will do if people go back to work. Now, I brought this up and I said, is this fair? Is this, you believe in free speech and things like that? The skeptics said, no, this is completely fair. The authorities did the right thing. This is David Tredinnick MP. Now, he doesn't look like that normally, but he's been photoshopped. But he's an MP, he's on the Health Select Committee and Science and Technology Select Committee, and he is a believer in many, many things that we are. Astrology, he believes in tarot, he believes in many, many things like that. He's a non-skeptic. Now, when this came out, there's someone else actually called Michel Fiore, who tried to bring in the Simoncini cancer treatment into the state of Nevada in the USA. So again, she was treated exactly the same. Now, what I mean was both these people, when they came out, when people found out what their beliefs were, the skeptics started calling for their forced deselection. Forced deselection. We're talking about a coup d'etat by the skeptocracy. They want somebody who's been elected. They have Michel Fiore is an elected representative in the Nevada legislature, the same way that David Tredinnick is elected to the UK Parliament by the people who vote for them. They want them to be kicked out of office because they're not skeptics. This is a transcript of a discussion I had on the Herpanwo forum, which is a forum I run, with a skeptic member, and it's called Astrological Twatface Tory. I won't read out the actual text, you can read it for yourself, but basically this guy is basically saying that, yeah, he's not a skeptic, so he shouldn't be in government, he shouldn't be allowed to run for office. So what they're saying is they want a dictatorship of the skeptics. If anyone is not a skeptic, they shouldn't be allowed to represent us politically. So it's an anti-democratic thing imaginable, but that's what they believe. Tedgate, we mentioned Rupert Sheldrake earlier on. This is him and Graham Hancock, a man who studies ancient mysteries and spiritual issues as well. Now, they spoke at the TED conference, at TEDx. Now, TED is Technology, Entertainment, Design, Ideas Worth Sharing. Now, you've probably seen these little videos that come out, little 15-minute videos where someone's on stage and they get 15 minutes to say what they want. Now, Sheldrake and Hancock both spoke at one of these events, TEDx Whitechapel. Now, these videos were uploaded to YouTube. They were really, really good, really interesting. But then they were removed. The TEDx authorities removed them from their YouTube channel. And this is what they said. After due diligence, including a survey of published scientific research and recommendations from our science board and our community, we have decided that Graham Hancock's and Rupert Sheldrake's talks from TEDx Whitechapel should be removed from distribution. Instead, we are placing them on a separate channel, TED Controversies. And this TED Controversies is a channel they set up just because there was an outcry to this. And it has a fraction of the views of the main TEDx YouTube channel. And Rupert Sheldrake calls it the naughty corner. And they said here, all talks on the TEDx Talks channel represent the opinions of the speaker, not TED or TEDx, but we feel a responsibility not to provide a platform for talks which appear to have crossed the line into pseudoscience. So what they basically mean is, they had a few nasty letters from the skeptic equivalent of disgusted Tunbridge Wells, and they just said, well, just get rid of them, censor them. So just, again, they show their true colours. Interestingly, Sheldrake someone tried to kill him the following year. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, he was attending the International Conference on Science and Consciousness at Santa Fe, New Mexico. Someone came up and tried to stab him to death. It's ironic. I mean, if I wouldn't try to ban skeptics from anything, I want skeptics to have freedom of speech like I wanted Simon Singh to have freedom of speech. But they don't want the same for us. Now, I'm going to play you a little clip. This is remarkable, okay? Just listen to this. So it won't be much longer, and we'll have questions. This is an absolutely remarkable clip.
So I guess the goal then is to teach them to be critical thinkers and let religion take care of itself. I think it would, but it's always a risk. I
should point out, actually, this is from a radio show called Skeptics Guide to the Universe. This is a radio show that I do listen to regularly. It's a little guilty pleasure of mine. But the person you're hearing talking in a minute is Steve Novella. He's the presenter of the show, and they have other panel members. And just listen to what he says. It's absolutely remarkable.
I do. One secular humanist parent told me that they basically took the approach of what you just said: teach them to be critical thinkers, but basically say nothing about religion, and then their children will grow up and make up their own mind, which they're going to do anyway. And it turned out that his daughter became a Buddhist, and he was not happy about that. And he thought, in retrospect, that perhaps he made a mistake by leaving it so open-ended. I don't have the answer. I'm certainly not telling people what to do when it comes to that. But his conclusion was, if I had to do it over again, I would have indoctrinated her into non-belief, basically.
I would indoctrinate her into non-belief. I would indoctrinate her into non-belief. Just think about that statement. Think about that sentence. Let it echo around your mind. Just sense its internal contradictions and the way it exposes the entire skeptic movement for what it is. The guy you heard talking there was Steve Novella, the guy on the left there. What he's basically saying is that, let's go back to the definition of skepticism. Critical thinking, logic, rationality, apportioning all claims to valid evidence. Okay, that's how this guy brought up his daughter. But when her critical, logical, rational brain decided that she wanted to be a Buddhist, the father didn't like it. He said, no, I should have indoctrinated her into non-belief. Well, firstly, this kind of thing illuminates the entire falsehood of the skeptic movement like a bolt of lightning. It's absolutely unbelievable. What is also unbelievable is that Novella uttered it without even catching it. He didn't even catch in his throat. He didn't even pause. It went, and the others didn't as well. They just carry on talking. The actual paradox that they brought up just went completely over their heads. So it's no wonder they get it so wrong with Psychic Sally, isn't it? If they don't even understand what's wrong here. What he's basically saying is that skepticism, they believe, is about rationality, critical thinking, science. But in order to maintain the skeptic worldview, sometimes you have to suppress a person's rational, scientific thoughts. And then they cannot no longer pretend that they are rational, scientific and critical thinkers if they have to do that. They have a belief system. They can't say things like, well, atheism is not a religion any more than the off switch is the TV channel. They can't say crap like that anymore because they've just exposed themselves. I want to say, how long have I got to?
You have another 8 minutes.
Okay. I'm just going to say a few words about, this is important, I'm just going to talk about this. Now this is the conveniently told confession story. And this is another thing you've got to watch out for from skeptics, right? Every so often, someone will confess that they perpetrate some kind of hoax, and the skeptic will swallow it without a second thought. Now this is a pic that's still from what's known as the Patterson-Gimlin film, a very, very interesting film, which I think shows real evidence of the existence of Bigfoot. Now, what happened was Bob Gimlin, one of the photographers, he phoned up Chris Packham, a guy at the BBC who presents nature programmes, and he said, I faked it. This was taken in 1967. I faked it. That's my wife dressed in a furry suit. Okay. Now, the skeptics go, right, the skeptic response to this was incredible. Right, shut up, quiet everyone, we have a confession. Case closed, case closed. It's over. You, shut that book. You, shut that laptop. Yes, you, shut that laptop. We're not going to investigate anymore. It's over. We have a confession, and that's the end of it. But a confession is a claim too. When people make confessions, they can lie. And this is what skeptics don't realise. Now, this is a book called The Boy Who Came Back from Heaven. This was written by it's by Kevin and Alex Malarkey. Alex Malarkey was a 6-year-old boy who was almost killed in a road traffic accident in his car. He was in a coma. The doctors thought he would die. He suffered massive head and spinal injuries, but he came out of the coma after a couple of years, and he's learning to walk and talk again. He's recovering slowly from his injuries, but when he started to talk again, he started to talk about a near-death experience he had. He wrote a book about it with his father, and the book became a massive bestseller. Now, the thing is, later on, he confessed that he faked it. He made it all up. There'd been no near-death experience. He and his father basically concocted the whole thing. And again, the skeptics say, right, he's confessed. It's over. That's it. No more. He's confessed. We're not going to investigate it anymore. We have the conclusion. The man confessed, so that's the end of it. But I think there's reasons to actually call into question Alex Malarkey's confession. And the reason is because he did this in a Facebook post, and the publisher eventually said, okay, well, they took the book out of print, they recalled as many copies as they could. And the reason is that since he'd actually written that book, his life had changed. I mean, he was a young chap, he was a young teenager by then, who's badly injured and could hardly walk or talk, and he was learning to get through his life and try and recover as best he could. And he found that he became very famous when this book was published, and he found that tough, hard to deal with. He was living at home with his parents. They converted a room in the house for him because of his disability. And his fans of the book would come and knock on his front door, and they want to speak to him. They turn up unannounced, just knocking on the door. The newspapers the media would come around with TV cameras, and newsmen would come around, banging on his front door the whole time. And his parents split up over the stress that this generated. And then his mother decided to sue both her ex-husband and her own son because of the royalties of the book. She wanted a share of the royalties of the book. So she sued her ex-husband and her own son. And this must have been extremely difficult from a family relationship point of view. So I think that we could call into question Alex's confession. I think perhaps he lied when he confessed that he made the whole thing up. The same with these two young ladies. This is Kate and Margaret Fox. They're two sisters from the United States. Now, in 1838, they came forward and said that their house was haunted and they'd heard strange noises and all kinds of things like this. And this supposedly gave birth to the religion we call spiritualism. It didn't actually. This is what the skeptics claim. That's not true. The spiritualism has different origins and much older. But they supposedly started spiritualism. They became very famous. It's a very similar story to Alex Malarkey. They became very, very famous, and in fact, they were in the spotlight all the time. Everybody knew them. They had no privacy. But this actually, they confessed. You see, about 20 years later, they confessed. They said they'd made the whole thing up. And the skeptics will say, well, there you are. You see, spiritualism is a fraud. It was created by 2 con women, who later on said that they were con women. And but by then it had grown legs. It was too late, and now we have spiritualist churches everywhere. Oh, whoa, you know. But again, I mean, Robert Mcluhan writes about this in his book. I think we have reason to call into question the confession of these 2 women. They, like Alex Malarkey and his family, they were finding fame very difficult to deal with. And both their marriages broke up. They both developed drink problems, and they were very ill. And I think at some point they may have got together and said, look, let's just roll this back. Can we perhaps roll this back and just go and just say we made it all up, and then everyone will go away, and we can try to have a kind of normal life. So again, I think that confession should be called into question. This is Rebecca Watson. Now, she is a young skeptic, and she was sent pictures of dismembered dead bodies, exactly like those sent to Merrill Dorey and to Sally Morgan. So I think the same criminal element are behind what happened to her as what happened to Sally Morgan. Now, I'm running out of time a little bit, so I can't tell you details now, but basically this triggered what I call the Skeptics' Civil War, because within the Skeptic movement themselves there is a massive amount of conflict. And she represents one part of this. There's another guy called P.Z. Myers, a couple of other people are on her side. There's these 2 guys, these are the avatars of certain people on YouTube who are on taking the other side. But basically Rebecca Watson was subjected to, as I said, sent pictures of dead bodies. She had threats. She had death threats. She had threats to rape her, threats to torture and mutilate her, threats to kill members of her own family. And the police investigated, and they thought, well, there's obviously some crazy conspiracy paranormal believers out there who really hate her. But when they actually found out who was sending her this material, it was other skeptics. Some of them were female skeptics too. So the skeptics will attack their own as well. They are, as I said, they are nasty people. This is why it matters, because they can be extremely destructive. And when we're trying to put forward information of this kind of thing, the skeptics can be can really, really hamper us in criminally violent ways. This is one of the skeptics I think is starting to get this. His name is Phil Plait. And he hasn't taken on board the points I've made, but he did a speech called Don't Be a Dick, where he actually he's one of the few skeptics who's starting to look at himself, to develop a little bit of introspection. And that's all I ask from skeptics when I make this speech. It's a very difficult task to look at yourself as others would see you. Look at your own community and your own culture from the outside. I've had to do it. Can they? That's the question. Now, I'll say a little bit more about myself before I end. This is a book I've written called Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. It's a book about UFOs. Very sceptical. Read that and you'll never believe in UFOs again, I swear. Only kidding. No. I haven't brought any copies with me, unfortunately, but you can get it at all good bookshops and online. If you go into a bookshop and it's not there, then it's not a good bookshop. Never shop there again. And again, this is my website, of course.
Is that a sceptical point of view?
It's a fictionalisation of the Roswell. The Roswell incident was where a UFO crashed and was secretly salvaged by the government. You can find out more about me at my website there. So, how long have I got for questions?
We'll give you as much as we can.
Can I say something? I found it very inconvenient that you use the word sceptical, and it's like drummed into you, sceptical, like not to question. Yeah, it's probably a word that was brought out and made popular at the same time as conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
So the use, none of us would be here unless we were sceptical.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult when you use a word that's ramming down your throat that's almost a negative to what you actually are.
This is
Do
why.
you understand what I'm trying to say?
This is why I, as I said, the word sceptical, I've used it for convenience. But I mean, as I've explained, the skeptics who call themselves the critical thinkers, which is what I aspire to and you aspire to, are not as critically thinking as they think. They have an ideology, they have a belief system.
Yeah, but the belief system's imposed by the wording that's used.
Quite possibly. I mean, I could have, if we could think of another word, I mean, that's a great thing to, maybe
It's...
maybe we can come up with another word.
Yeah.
Doubters.
Doubters, debunkers.
Well, I don't know. If
some people use the word
if someone
debunkers.
debunks a hoax sort of terrorist situation, they're not a bad person, are they?
Exactly. I mean, it's a
They've
tricky.
shown you that, and you've debunked it.
Can I ask, do you see the skeptic movement as a byproduct of the humanist movement?
They are connected. I mean, they kind of run parallel in a way. As I said, really, it's Richard Dawkins is the individual who kind of brought the two together. He's a bridge figure. He kind of draws the two into one.
And was that in counteractive to the movement that has developed from paranormal experiences, UFOs? It was like the counter answer.
They're both on the same page, really, but they both operated separately pretty much until Dawkins. However, having said that, Paul Kurtz, who is one of the founder members of PSYCOP in 1976, he was also one of the signatories of the American Humanist Manifesto. And I could say a lot more about that. So Kurtz, you could also say, is kind of a bridging figure. But in a sense, since between then and Dawkins, I think the skeptic movement did its own thing and the atheist movement did its own thing. And the two never really, even though they were both really on the same page, they never really had much to do with each other. That's changed now. That's changed. They're a unified whole now.
Yeah, I think you talk about Brian Cox and the kind of propaganda that the DNC is using with someone like him. They're dumbing it down even more. Like, if you look at David Attenborough before and what he used to talk about, it's miles away from what he does now, what he's been doing towards the end. And you can see when the production, there's always this little clip where it's like talking about global warming and climate change. Just
I wouldn't trust anyone on television.
It's always,
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. He's a front for talking to.
they always put it right in there,
It's
and it's.
definitely on there.
Like a program like Horizon, it's nothing like it used to be. It's not even science anymore, is it? Would you call it science?
It's propaganda for the most part. I mean, they've done a lot of stuff on climate change. Which are totally, they're so frightening and scary that when you get people in a state of fear, they can't really think rationally. Because you could pick them apart rationally. You can see how wrong they are, how they make so many mistakes.
Is it global warming was brought out by the Gnostic Illuminati as one way to melt the world, and to stop them doing the evil sort of way that the other side of the Illuminati want to destroy it to rule it?
It's probably a bit of both. I mean, it's a bit convenient, though, that we have a trend in politics towards greater authoritarianism and internationalism at the very same moment that a problem emerges of such purport it could end human life on Earth, and it needs that very thing, internationalism and authoritarianism, to solve it. I mean, it's what David Icke would call problem, reaction, solution. And what David Icke is very good in that. He talks an awful lot about that. He's absolutely right.
Would you say that politically, it should, like if you're looking at Brian Cox or something like that, it's shifted to the left?
Yeah.
Is that whereas it would have probably been on the right, maybe? Am I right?
No, the left and the right in the politics are really they're going in they're both drawing.
They're swapping sides, because it seems like it.
Yeah.
I used to be on one side now.
It's still too confusing. They're still owned by the same people.
I'm not talking about the actual party. I'm talking about thought process of.
Yeah, but the thought process is indoctrination again, which we swap you around with.
They're both heading in the same direction. They're both used to propagate the New World Order. Yeah.
I think it kind of creates the way they process information is skewed, and it looks like because there are supernatural things happening in our times, and of course UFOs the big one. When things will go down, because many in the conspiracy theory believe that New World Order, etc., they will be left unprepared, and therefore they will have to go back to what their leaders say. That's why you have all these big leaders. And of course Richard Dawkins, he changed his position. He didn't, in front of, what's his name, Peter? He said he couldn't explain away the creation of the self-replicating molecule for
Yeah.
the evolution. So therefore, he said aliens could possibly have succeeded life here on Earth. So
Yeah.
if he shifts his position, I think they will follow him because they've got nothing else to fall behind.
I think he was being ironic. He was taking the mickey out of Georgios Sakaras and his Ancient Aliens program. But I mean, he is still an important. It's a very important admission on his part. It's a vital concession that he made, because I know he's taken the mickey, but he's right. He's true. He cannot explain it, and he knows it. But he's basically hinting, well, maybe science will get around to it. Let's do better science. If science can't explain it, we do better science. But they don't. Usually, they don't do better science. They just make things up, as we've thought. They indoctrinate people into non-belief, as we've heard.
Back to Brian Cox again. With the science that it isn't science that they push. You can see with him that this movement towards the alien thing, he talks about it quite a lot, doesn't he? He goes on about more than I've ever heard anyone on TV talk about it.
Cox, Cox, he talks about it, and he does it. He talks an awful lot about us and belief in paranormal and supernatural UFO stuff. But he doesn't make a case. He just insults. He's just abusive.
He doesn't believe in UFOs, but the trend is now to believe in aliens in a civilization far off. But not believing in UFOs.
He did a big
Carl
U-turn.
Sagan
It's very confusing.
He did it on television because he said there's absolutely no way that there could be anyone anywhere.
Carl Sagan.
And then no, Professor Brian Cox. And then 12 years later, he said, "Well, actually, infinite possibilities. This could be." And I thought, well, that's a bit of a U-turn, isn't it?
It's
There's
like
some other clause into it.
The more swayed towards aliens that haven't visited us, that we're trying to contact.
Yeah,
rather than
SETI.
aliens visiting us.
Search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Carl Sagan was very keen on that.
Yeah.
But he's a complete anti-UFO skeptic. I mean, he refers to it very briefly. It's pretty clear he doesn't really know much about it, but he parrots the usual line, well, mistaken identity, sleep paralysis, etc., etc. But yeah, I mean, funny, he believes in aliens, but as long as they're a long, long way away, they've got to be out. They can never reach us. They're just light years away. We can talk to them with our radio telescopes, but no way can they ever get here.
They're already here.
Yeah.
They are. You see, this is the point. They're not out there. They're here. They're on Earth.
What's your view?
My view is UFOs. Some UFOs are extraterrestrial vehicles, or interdimensional, whichever you like to call it. They're not of this world, yet they're in this world. They're interacting with the human race.
Do you follow any religion?
No, I'm not. I'm a spiritual person. I accept that. I think it's quite likely this universe has some sort of consciousness that it's convenient to call God. But I don't follow any religion as such, a Christian or any other. But I think God is real, yes.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
So you believe in aliens and ghosts? Do
Yeah.
you believe in demons?
Yes. I think there are malevolent spiritual entities, yes, which you convenient to call demons. There's the Muslims call them jinn. There's several other names. There's archons. They exist, yes.
Do you believe in angels?
Yeah. There are also, there are benevolent spiritual entities too, which you could call angels.
The two ladies you just mentioned, that they were the founders of
The
spiritual...
Fox sisters, yeah.
Well, you probably know the story, that years later when they demolished the house, they actually found somebody who had been murdered and shoved between the walls.
I didn't know that. I mean, I knew the house had been demolished.
Because what they were saying was quite possibly true, because he had been, butchered, murdered, and he was buried between the walls.
Wow,
That's a fact.
That's really interesting, because I knew the house had been knocked down, because I know someone who went to try and find their house, and it's just empty grass now.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise there was a dead body of a murder victim in there. That could explain the haunting, you see.
Yeah.
Because haunting often occurs where there's pain and there's suffering and death. Hospitals are very haunted. Battlefields.
Really?
Hospitals are extremely haunted, generally.
Wow.
A personal question. You were saying before that they can be quite aggressive and...
Cox.
No, not Cox.
Skeptics.
Just the skeptics in
They
general.
can be,
and
yes.
Kendall as well. Have they come against you? Have you had any experience of...
I have, yes. I've had some pretty vicious treatment. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a big, ugly ex-hospital porter. I'm a lot more resilient than someone like Rebecca Watson, who's a young woman who lives alone. But yeah, I mean, I feel upset by the way I've been treated. I've been treated very badly. I've had abuse hurled at me. I've been threatened. I've been called all kinds of names. So yeah, I mean, you'll probably, if you go public with your views, sooner or later you will get one of these thug element, unfortunately. Some skeptics are all right. I've got friends who are skeptics, but
But like you said, they will. Yeah, you're
Why
right.
did they went against her? She was part of them.
Exactly. See, because they'll attack their own. Because there's a long story, but she had an argument. She fell out with a. It's all to do with internal skeptic politics. About it's a long story. I talk about it more in the long version of this particular video. Yeah.
Skeptics are just dog-eat-dog people, aren't
Yeah, I mean, they
they? In a nutshell.
when you fall into materialism, it's easy to fall into nihilism.
Nihilism,
Yeah, and social Darwinism.
It's something that they would not discuss or accept nihilism.
Yeah, exactly, and social Darwinism can often lead off from there. Dawkins, I mean, the Humanist Association is actually trying to undo that and explain that that's not the case, but I think it is inevitably it's a danger of falling into that, where you just think it's a dog-eat-dog world, so you just treat anyone any way you like, because we're all just individuals and we just get one life, and it's just make as much out of this life as you can, because nothing else matters. No one else matters. That's the philosophy of many
In
of them.
fact, one of the first philosophers to promote the atheist movement, Nietzsche, he actually, because he was quite an honest man, he said, well, the byproduct of that, you have to understand, is nihilism.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he will end up with a philosophy, well, it's me first and everybody else can go and die.
Friedrich Nietzsche has actually been very maligned, but he actually warned about this kind of thing. He was an atheist himself. He said God is dead. That was one of his catchphrases.
Yeah.
But he actually, I think he understood the dangers that
correct.
mindset could bring. In fact, he even advocated perhaps having a religion for common folk, and the aristocrats could do without it.
What
Like
we
that.
have today.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, can we just...
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks
Thanks for
very
having me. Much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
The only thing I was going to say, the next meetup, which is at the end of
I'm in the coach station now. It's about 11:15, so I've got about an hour and a half to wait for my coach. No, actually it's only 10:30. An hour and 3/4 I've got to wait for my coach. Coach leaves at 1:15 for Birmingham, and I've got to change there 2:30 in the morning. 3 o'clock coach leaves for Oxford. Good old-fashioned portering night shift, basically. I've got the skull experiment to keep me entertained. It's going to be a long night. Got the coffee on Jennings. Now, it was a good event. I mean, it finished. We went for a drink afterwards. We went to the bar at the hotel and had a drink. The guys who were there, and one of them gave me a lift back to the city centre, and it was very, very good. Very nice of him to do that. And I went and I had something from Burger King, which I haven't done for years, but I just felt the urge. I don't normally eat there. Phil gave a speech, actually. It was interesting. I think they were coming across it from a sort of biblical prophecy standpoint, and a lot of the other guys were very into the biblical prophecy thing. One chap said, he told me a story. I think I might have to do an entire video or article about what he told me. I can't put it into this one, but it's quite an astonishing story. A bit hair-raising. Phil did this speech before me. He did for an hour. He did a speech before me about how biblical prophecy matches basically the end game of the New World Order and things like that, about how it could be defeated. I think they were talking from a lot of them are sort of they're very, very, some of them are religious, spiritual, Christian. I haven't quite worked that out. Very interesting characters. The one chap, he's very into the holographic universe type things. All in all, they're very, very, very interesting people. Very nice people. Kind of people. I hope they invite me back. I really do. But right now I've got to wait for my coach now and read the skull experiment. I'll tell you more on the journey. Alright, probably muse a little bit more as I make my way home through the night. So see you later. You don't often see Birmingham coach station as quiet as this. Yeah, I don't.
It's 2:30 and I'm in Birmingham. Just waiting for my next coach to see up in there. There's just one coach parked and it's all dark. I've never seen it like this before. We've got like... well, I've got to... wait and I'll get the next one. I tried sleeping on the coach, right, but there was these two Irish blokes in front of me, wouldn't shut up. But the whole time, just wouldn't shut up. I laughing every few seconds about anything. These two blokes, pretty strong Ulster accents, like Miles, but laughing more. Just wait for the next coach. 3 AM. I've got to wait till then. Right, it's I don't know what time it is. It's just getting light. I'm home. I only go to bed for about an hour or 2 hours, I think, and then I'm going to get up for work. And well, Marine Le Pen has won. Well, she, along with Mcluhan, has won, which means she's going through to the next round, which will be in. It's not 4 weeks. I think it's. Oh no, it's about 3 weeks or something. So that's good. Thanks for watching Panwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.